sorry, I thought that's what we were doing. That's why Lee's at the end of the table, isn't it? No. What would you like to do? Level of service community buildings, because that's the one we've skipped. Or would you like?
Charlie exercise.
Well, you've got Janice here, so let's go with that. Janice, come on up.
This is one I'm in a good mood.
Oh, let's go for some.
And Harvey needs to as well. Right. Over in the annex. Next is 12. These all the awards.
Yeah, yes.
We ready to go?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Clearly a lot of interest in this conversation, and I appreciate that it is a difficult conversation for us to have, and in the current climate, from a financial point of view. And just by way of a reminder of how we've come to this position is back when we started these conversations in sort of September of the number of workshops that your council have been working through the LTIP process. During that time, obviously you've been extremely mindful of the costs for ratepayers and the increase in what those rates are potentially looking like. Through that conversation, you asked us to go away and look at where there are potential savings and what does that look like. And this report for levels of service and looking at community facilities was part of that conversation. And in looking at a workshop, then we went to the decision was to go to community boards, get some recommendations, and then to bring those recommendations to you today, basically, which is what you have. I think it's fair to say that the conversations with the community boards were equally as challenging and difficult. And for all valid reasons of the history, first and foremost, that's tied into these buildings, not wanting to, I think the comment was to sell the family silver at the time, which is absolutely valid in the conversation, the concerns that are raised with that. What Janice and myself and the rest of the team have done is look at these buildings and look at the use of the buildings, and remembering that the majority of the buildings that we're talking about were built around the First and Second World War. The way that we travelled as a community was very different 100 years ago to how we travel today. And when we've had a conversation in relation to Owen Pub earlier on today, and we're looking at the future for that facility. We have an amazing facility down the road here that we'll be looking at. That is a very different picture to 100 years ago. And so in looking at how much these buildings are being used, the level of repair and maintenance, the operational point of view, and not least the capital expenditure that is looking like it's going to be needed with the legislation that we have today, basically for earthquake strengthening, of some significant numbers of around about that $14–15 million for earthquake strengthening if you were to retain all of these buildings. I think the operational expenditures around about $4.5 million over that 9 years, which averages around about 2% for ratepayers on average over the 9-year period. And whilst we've taken on board and we've put into the report the recommendations from the community boards, if you look at the attachment, which is in relation to attachment Appendix A for this, of the some 34 buildings that we've looked at in total, there's around about 8 whereby the view of the community boards and the reasons for that are differing to what we as staff have put forward as a recommendation out of that figure table. I would caveat that here there was some reluctance from community boards to include some of those buildings, but to remember that the recommendations that we're putting forward for these buildings that we're considering the divestment for is to go into the consultation document, to have a conversation with our community as to what the picture like if we were to divest that, and subject to what your decision is today, we would then go away and link in with the communities, link in with the different groups that utilise some of these buildings to have that conversation on what that looks like, because we haven't done that to date. That will come to this. That will then, we'll be looking at the community to make informed submissions to the consultation document for you to hear what that picture looks like. Do you want to add something?
No, just really a summary of the main CapEx costs that we provide strengthening. It's 12.7 million overhauls. And there's like we don't know what government is thinking, but we have to work within the legislation that we currently have. The dates that you'll see in this report at the end, the summary table there, that has taken the 4 years. We've added 4 years on. The government given us an extra 4 years to earthquake strengthening. Also, the earthquake strengthening we have got all of is to 2052, the 34%. And we don't know what those changes are going to be when the central government review the legislation, but we have to work on the legislation that we've got before us today.
So just to add to that, government earlier in the year, with the legislation and the methodology that we have in place for earthquake strengthening at the moment, they had stated that there was going to be a 4-year extension to the current time frames. What they said to that is that they would ratify that basically by the end of this year. We haven't seen that to date at the moment. There was an awful lot of legislation that was getting rushed through before Christmas, and so who knows what that picture will look like. They also said that they would start a review of that legislation by about mid next year. Don't know what that's going to look like in time, and so we have based the conversation on what we have today and the facts that we have. Happy to answer any questions.
Who would like to kick us off? Lonely.
Can I just clarify, if a wall is passed over to a community group, do they have the same onus on them to do the earthquake strengthening?
In short, yes. And so if the public are going in there, then you as a property owner have the same responsibilities as council.
Can we wait 4 years, push the king down the track 4 years until we have more certainty about what the government has decided?
I guess that's a decision for yourselves in relation to that. What I would say is, the legislation as we have it today, you have a policy as well in relation to council-owned facilities, and you have, through that policy, determined that you want to earthquake strengthen council-owned facilities at a faster rate than what the legislation says. So we just need to go back and have a look at that policy, bring that back to you as well. But that's open for the conversation now.
But my concern is that there hasn't been much yet in the public arena about that. Okay, it's going out to consultation, but in some cases, here we're talking about people's livelihoods, and the community halls in villages, small towns, they're kind of the heart of the community. You're talking about keeping terrace for Cromwell, but what about Portburn or Bex or all those ones? They are really important to the community, so you don't want to sort of rip out their heart if there's any way around it.
Absolutely hear what you're saying. I guess what I'd caveat that with is that when we've looked at this, we've looked at the use of those facilities and the income capture. So if I use terrace for argument's sake and the level of use for that building versus some of the other halls that you've stated, there's quite a big difference in relation to the use of those buildings.
You might not be seeing all the very.
And that is an absolute fair point, and that is a challenge for us then as staff, is whereby we have a process where for halls to be used so that we can have a level of income, albeit small income, coming into the offset rates, and whereby people are still using facilities but not using it through the official process, shall we say. That doesn't happen.
If the hall gets invested to a community, can it be reinstated or given back to a council?
Actually, it's going to be sold to a community. We would have a look at what that sales agreement, what we would include in that sales agreement, because one of the risks is
But the investment's not selling.
you might sell it to $1, or if you lease it to a community, that does not absolve council from responsibility for earthquake strengthening. We need to be really clear on that. You give it to a community, it would need to be tied up in a some sort. It might only be $1.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is if you may have a look at any of the lots of these ones, Terrace, still go Terrace, because it's first one. And the community divested it and invested in like the rocks for swimming pool. And they did the work to it and they maintained it and did everything well. And they come along with the earthquakes rules change in 2054, correct?
That's the time frame. So
Get done.
for us as the council, a medium seismic area. And so those are high, medium and low. There's different time frames in which buildings have to be.
Of which we don't exactly know where that's going to land. Those chickens are going to land yet.
We don't, because the government's just saying that they're going to review it. They may not make any changes, they may make significant change. I don't know yet.
So if you take the approach to the Roxburgh pool and you take the approach and put that to a hall, then all of a sudden the community make it better to settle there because big tradies or volunteers in their group make it better. And then the earthquake standards come out and it gets used. Because effectively it's a bit like amalgamation, isn't it? 25 years ago, there was a Manitoba Community Board, County Council, had these halls and they were going to amalgamate to make it better. And actually we got all the way to the end of the amalgamation, want to give them back. So what can you reinvest it back into the community? I guess I'm saying. They take the running costs because exactly the same principle could happen to a hall that's happened in the pool in Roxburgh.
I don't see any reason why that can't be.
It could be in better condition. It could be earthquake and like I guess the door's not shut because people in their communities, like Lindley said, are going to ask questions.
Yes.
And my argument, community board in Manitoba, we're going through the fastest growth period we've ever had, Central Otago, in its lifetime. And we're talking about the things that the communities put in 100 years ago for the growth, and the growth came 100 years later. And that's my only concern is if we can't give it back, because if you take the hall in Bannockburn or the hall in Terrace and the community really rallies behind it, that asset gets better.
All I would say to that is the council could have declined to take back the swimming pool. A future council.
That's it.
Someone might.
That's what that is.
Of course, I've been hoping that it could be, of course it is, yes, but a future council could say we don't want.
Yeah, that's right.
And the risk is that that community don't do the earthquake strengthening, and we need moving close to that time. They go, no, we're not ready for this. Have it there. And
Which would be an easy decision for a council table to make.
yeah, and we talk.
Easier than getting rid of it before you have the rules.
It's similar to the contingency buildings that we have on reserve land. When they're being run by a club and run very well by a club, that's great. But when they walk away, they become contingency buildings. They come back to us, and then the responsibility is on staff recommending to council: are we going to keep this contingency building, or are we going to demolish it? It all comes with a cost.
And I guess the other thing about divesting or selling, there's no financial gain to the ratepayer and contributions coming back. It is just the less of a percentage on the rate rise.
Correct.
So if you turned around and said the Terrace Hall was worth $900,000, they're going to cost $300 and something thousand to earthquake it, the net return to the community is $600,000. You can invest that where you want, put in your fire brigade or whatever. It doesn't. There's no gain financially other than the long-term planned budgets.
I mean, if you have a building that is worth 500,000, but it needs $1 million worth of earthquake strengthening on that, you're probably not going to be able to sell it for that 500,000.
No.
From that perspective. And I guess the absolute right, Stu, in that savings are in relation to operational costs of nearly 5 million over 9 years and capital expenditure of almost 15 million.
One of the things that was pushed through with a number of the community boards was the opening of alternative doors for funding if council don't own it, and that external funders can potentially provide funding for earthquake strengthening that council buildings can't access. So that is another, I guess, consideration to your point where you say you might sell it for $1 to a community group who does all the work and then sells it back to you in 30 years' time for $1. But you got
A question.
Yeah.
So Bennett's one's got a summary table of the buildings that shows which ones staff are saying, including the consultation document, and the ones where the board's view is different. But the ones that are green, won't they also be part of the consultation document? Because isn't actually to keep them part of the consultation and to divest, isn't it? All in? Why I'm suggesting that is that because there might be others saying, actually, I want this one out that you said in, and this one here in that you said out, but that's where we end up going.
That wasn't the initial proposal, to be perfectly honest, in relation to when we looked at it and the investment that you as a council have put forward already, the strategic nature of each of those buildings. That wasn't anticipated in being the conversation.
All I say, well, the very nature of the fact what's in and what's out, the ones that are staying, the council saying stay are actually in the consultation document because so these are staying, these are going. That way people have the chance to say their bit either way.
Would it be in just the preamble though? We're getting buildings and it's not, they're not on the table.
Let's not get ourselves in a situation where we go to consultation only about those that we said no to, when still one want to say, well, you should say no to these because that's what we're proposing. This is in, these are out.
It might just be some, with no change to levels of service.
Yeah.
Following the.
Yeah. I think just to present the bigger picture.
The one in the Mediato there, you've got, we haven't done the adjustments we made at the meeting on the recommendations at B. The community board, we looked at some from our recommendation of the community board. Do they not go into this report?
You may recall at that meeting when we spoke and we advised to say that the recommendations that staff will be providing are staff's recommendations as per what we put forward to each of those community boards. However, we reflect the differences of what that looks like. So in the attachments, you can see that we've got community boards for that.
Page 40 shows it. Good.
Yeah, I've got that. 40 recommendations.
Well, just a couple of things not quite right on that page with the pictures. And that you reckon just the colours were around the wrong way. One being the railway station building versus the Ranfurly Service Centre. The recommendation is that the service centre is, and then the same with the Briar Herb Museum, it's in red, but I'm pretty sure the board agreed with the staff that that should be.
So the second point first.
Okay, go on then.
With regards to the Briar Herb. So
Yeah.
We have put forward the recommendation for the conversation, so accepting exactly what the board have stated is to say that divestment should occur.
Yeah.
We're still recommending that conversation be held with the community as part of the consultation,
Get rid of it.
not just get rid of it in respect of that. And for the wider conversation in relation to the buildings that are related to that. We have had initial conversations with the museums with regards to that site. That's where we believe that those conversations, to be fair to them, can be brought into the submission process. So absolutely recognising that the community board said recommended to divest it.
Yeah.
And
I thought you had recommended that they've gone one step further and said don't even have the conversation. Is that Ranfurly Service Centre and the Ranfurly Railway Station around the wrong way, those colours?
It's correct because we recommended in our first report that the Ranfurly Service Centre was included. And
Yes, we're not on page 12. I don't think. Page 12 recommendations is that the following buildings are retained: Ranfurly Railway Station.
obviously the colours are the ones we're going. Yes.
You mean,
So
yeah.
my notes in.
Yes. Okay.
So
So to clarify, the recommendation is to keep the railway station.
yeah,
Give it a service,
Page 40.
We recognise that a lot of these buildings are liabilities to this council, liabilities, quite major liabilities going forward. I think we also recognise that they are major assets to the communities that they serve. Council, it's refreshing to hear you say earlier that you were engaging with the community groups that are currently using these buildings to encourage them to submit to the LTP process. We need to take our communities on this journey with us. I don't want to see a repeat of what happened with the Wilding Pines. issue that we had in Alex, which split the community apart. I think we learned some very valuable lessons from that exercise, that it was critical that we take our communities along on this journey, because we could create something very special. We could, I'm going to cite the Klein Memorial Hall as an example. It is a well-used facility. I would hate to see that sold to a developer. To be bold, had 25 townhouses put on it. But I would certainly support the current uses coming together with some form of collective and actually taking ownership of it. And as I think the Worship said at our meeting, some sort of centralised arts centre in Clyde would be a real asset. What assurances can you give us that if we, as a council, choose to divest these, that the community will be given the first choice of ownership of it, and it may be in a dollar, as opposed to trying to sell, and I'm going to use that term, in the family silver to the highest bidder, because those returns are going to be minimal.
Well, I mean, under our policies, that's right. Only council can dispose of assets. So any decision has to come before council. So ultimately, you are the final decision makers on how we choose to divest. What options we put you, you'll take those options or not. That's your decision.
So it would be council's choice between a developer offering $1 million and the community offering $1, and it would be this council's opportunity to say no, it is remaining with the community.
I infer from that when we go out, make the assumption that we go through this process and the decision is made to divest a certain number of halls, that it'll be a dual process. The private sector will get a first pitch, and the public sector will also, and eventually will come back to us. Can't we just say, well, the first initial is to offer it to our community organisations first, and if they don't pick up the opportunity, then pass it off to the private sector.
If I may, that is an option that you have. What I caveat that with is that we absolutely will be linking in with the community to have this conversation. We need to have the conversation with our community. But questions whether or not you want to limit what that whole picture looks like, because depending on what the future looks like, your view may change. And that is a difficult thing for me to say here, but your view may change. And so whilst today we may say you absolutely don't want to go to the community for $1, depending on the circumstances and the other costs that you're facing at that time, you may decide that actually you want to go with the developer. I think we need to bring that whole picture to you for you to make an informed decision as to which direction you want to go.
If it's
I would suggest, Matt, potentially running those two processes that you think are separate together might result in a better outcome for the community. For example, if you're offering to sell them something for $1 and everybody goes, oh, no, thanks, I'm not really interested, versus the community knows that a developer is looking at that piece of land to put 25 townhouses, and all of a sudden there's loads of people who are interested in forming a committee to take over that.
Is it possible we can take it out of the long-term plan consultation and move it out of it and just have the conversations with the community groups down the track?
Our problem would be that to do that means you'd have to lock into the budgets, the existing costs and all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, a decision needs to be reached because we need to put budget in there. So if we were to move it down the road a little bit, we're still going to then have to budget for these for a period of time. Now, long-term plan is going to be the next 9 years. So, you know, we actually do need a decision one way or the other, because we will have to put money into the budget to fund this.
Well, we talked this morning about the trust that's been regained with community boards, and community boards have all put their ideas forward for these halls. Can we do it exactly as the community boards have decided, because there's been changes from that?
I mean, that's the council.
Yeah, it's an option in here today. We could pull some things out of and put them into this council is going to retain, recognising that quite a lot of our community boards have had the same discussion and have left it as is, recognising that there may be opportunities that we can't see from this side of the table. But now would be the time, if there is something in that list that is to be considered for divestment, not divested, just considered, If there's something that you think is in that list and needs to come into the retain now, then now is the time for us to have that conversation.
Well, if you want one thing, the Blythe Street Museum.
That's it.
Uh,
Because it was raised that instance, so
was raised for that, and there was one that's in red here, it's the board's view differs from the staff recommendation. Museum community in Clyde have expressed interest to take over the actually, and that's the same by allowing that community organisation to buy that for $1 and bid sell it to them for $1.
then it would need to remain in where it is. Yeah.
And that's the Blythe Street, that's the old council chambers, yeah.
I'm really struggling. We've got a report here, which I congratulate, I think it's a very good report. And we're doing what democracy asks you then is to come and consult with the community. And now we've got members around this table trying to second guess what a consultation might produce and exclude this and exclude that and do the next thing.
But wait,
Sorry, let me finish. We're not committing ourselves to any course of action, and as Peter said, when an action is to be taken, it will be taken around this table. So you're not committing yourself to something that is irrevocable, you can't change at a future date. And I just don't like the idea of going out of saying, right, we're going to go out and consult our communities through the district on what's been laid out here, but we don't actually want you to consult about this, and we don't get the feedback from the community and bring it back to this table, and then you can have discussions about it.
but some of these things have been removed that community boards have asked for, and I'll just use for an example the Naseby Hall and the Naseby store. They've been
But we're just,
the community is not going to be able to consult because they're not going to be in there.
No, they are going, they are in the consultation. Yeah.
they're all being consulted about. The idea that you go out for a consultation and put a whole lot of caveats around this option or that option just strikes me as defeating the intention of the report.
So if you have a consultation.
Sorry. No, well, I mean, you're in total control of the situation. Staff, we pass this through A, B, and C today. Staff will go out and do what Lee has outlined, and it'll come back to this forum here. And if you don't like what staff bring back, or you want to change this, whatever, but at least you'll be making informed decisions that involve the whole council, not having a partial decision based on this interest group here or that museum group there or whatever. It just seems to me that it's counter to getting good democratic decisions to try and put exclusions in place before you even started the consultation process.
What about though if the community board, for example, the Teviot Community Board has recommended retaining the Millers Flat Hall or the Naseby Shore?
That's fine. The community board's had a voice, and now the community's going to have a voice. What's the problem?
I go so far as to say the benefit of actually leaving it the way it is that it's going to test those contentious ones.
Yeah.
And we're going to be told with not just purely the members who've got an idea in their head that isn't necessarily entirely supported by the greater community. And I would have thought the compelling case for turning those ones that are yellow into the red reedy ones back into green is to get the community to come in and say, no, don't get rid of this, don't get rid of this. It's going to be a brave council and turn around and go through that process where the board said keep it, then the community tell you to keep it. You've had a pretty clear message then to make a decision about it. And that's probably, I think what Nigel's saying, I don't disagree with entirely, is that that's how the democratic process will best work for this. Also why I said that we should keep the green ones about saying that's the proposal as well, because then people can turn around and say, no, terrace, get rid of it, or whatever, because that's part of that process as well.
And can we have some, not being a big council, I always struggle when I see spreadsheets like we've got here with, these are the costs for earthquake streets, and I can understand that. But if this is an exercise to bring back the burden on rates, I think we need to have some better figures around. So that, you know, where the savings and what they actually going to reflect at the bottom line. Because if we're doing this as an exercise to save money and to save expenditure going forward, especially with earthquake shelter, and unless I'm not seeing it, I'm seeing total spends, but I'm not seeing what their savings as percentage will be.
And so, if I may through the chair, is that each of those capital expenditure and the operational expenditure are the figures.
Yeah.
Overall, we're looking at capex around about 15 million, just under 14.7, and for an operational, we're just looking at just under 5 million through your long-term plan. So that's an average of 2% a year.
So it's 2% a year.
And Neil, my understanding, when the consultation document, if it were to remain as it is, the consultation document would go out. This would be your predicted rates. It will cost more if you want to add these things back in. Is there going to be the ability to break it down beyond that 15 million?
It's,
So what you're saying is the recommendation on here by the staff is let's go into the consultation documents before we have the consultation with the community.
Well, you have to have something in the document to consult with the community, and you have to have figures in it, and the figures would be based on all of those out theoretically, and then it would cost you to add them back in.
And we can get an average dollar cost. But all I would say is we wouldn't be able to work through every permutation, because there's so many options there that, so we'd be a bit of a generalist to be required.
with Paul, obviously we'll work through what that could look like for that,
I think it's, people don't want to pay more, but if they know they are paying more, so they're going to get to keep something, then it's a better question to ask than not ask.
Is there also an option on some of the halls to keep them, and then down the track, and we pushed out earthquake strengthening to the very end, that we would divest the halls at that point before we had to do the work? So, because a lot of the work doesn't have to be done now, but we're talking about divesting them now. So could we hold on to some of them with the view that, and consult with the community, that these, some of these halls we could look at divesting down the track, because if we don't do the earthquake strengthening now, obviously the earthquake strengthening is going to be a lot more, and we probably can't afford to do it later, but it's actually not now that it needs to be done.
and makes to answer that is that's part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And so in having the conversation through the consultation documents is looking at that again. That will you need to come back again as a separate piece of work, looking at your policy in relation to council-owned buildings and the earthquake strengthening in relation to that. That's not an issue to change that out. It's just that we need to go through that process, change what that policy looks like, and if that's the direction that our community is asking us to look at, as well as yourselves. But I guess from the recommendations that we're proposing to you today through Janice and myself, is let's have this conversation. Let's have the conversation with the communities and discuss these issues. And to have the community engaged in that process. And you may recall, the Tibbet Valley Community Board in particular. And I said that, once we start this conversation, our role, as well as the view from a community board perspective, that's your function as well as to engage with the community to make sure that people are engaging through the process to make a really informed submission. So that when we bring this back to you in 2025, but all the information to say, yes, we agree with you, but no, we don't for these reasons. And that is your choice.
So when does it come back to us?
Yeah, 29th of January.
Not in January.
No, the consultation document.
So the process will be, we will issue the consultation document up, which means we'll go over consultation for at least 30 days. 1 month is the statutory requirement. We would need to have that back April, May, collate all of the responses so that we can make a decision on what the final LTP looks like. Then that goes to audit for adoption by 30 June 2025. So it's in that kind of March, April, May type time that we were out consulting, and it comes back
that's when it comes back to you with what Lee's talking about in terms of the feedback, the submissions from the interested parties, and then you get to make a decision on. Doesn't expect the community boards don't see that before it comes to ratification of council.
The inventories for the 27th, the base bonus, and the question come, and Audit have asked us to bring that, we're waiting for us to look at way, looking at all your calendars, what that will look like. So the mid-May-ish will be the deliberations where you will come from hearings that you will decide finally on this.
So I guess the concern in my corner I've got is we've got submissions tomorrow closing on a massive solar farm. We're going to emotionally charge people in our community that they may not be in the mood for consulting a consultation document in the new year.
It's not.
Well, the new year.
Okay.
Yeah. And if we have, this is hard to say, but what if you only get, say, wipe out of all, you get 2 submissions saying we want to retain? The community board has said we're interested in divesting it because that's how we saw our meeting. And those 2 people come in and say, no, we want to keep it. But it's actually going to come down to the council decision then, isn't it? So
It's always a council decision.
So why would we, so if that be the case, like go to your one's here, the TV service centre and entertainment centre, or the Minnetonka Arts Centre, railway station, Clubber. Why don't we leave all of them? No, but if you're going to go and consult, because I guess what I'm saying, you're going to ask the community what they want.
Yeah.
And if they're not on that
That's
list,
what Neil has said, they're all in there,
yeah,
They're all in there.
they're all in.
But you just mentioned the proposition would be no change to the levels of service, but to the other ones would be the proposition is to divest. They've had 2 different propositions, but if people will be able to feedback on all of them.
Why can't we just leave them all in with one option and people can come back and consult?
Because our next rise percentage would look like astronomical, and it would be a bit of a jealousy, and I think, sorry, Paul?
So I'm seeing, which would may end up, the legislation around the consultation document is a council must have a preferred option in each of its consultation issues. So you need to make a decision on what your preferred option is pretty much now. The other part of that is you must, as a requirement, you must talk about the impact on rates and the impact on debt. So those are the things that we will be talking about as well. So your preferred option might be, I don't know what the preferred option is, but let's just say it's to divest them all, right? So we would work out the impact on rates and the impact on debt. And then at the other extreme, an option could be retaining, and we would have to work out the impact on rates and the impact on debt. So the bits in between, keeping this one, getting rid of that one, fall somewhere in between those 2 extremes. So you don't have to consult on, as the chief executive said, on every permutation because you've covered them in the extremes. So, but you must have a preferred option in your consultation document for each consultation item.
so from this case here, or maybe I picked it up 100% wrong. For the Minnetonka, there's only 3 on the staff recommendation for the consultation to be the level of service maintained as it is now, correct?
Yeah.
At our community board recommendation, we recommended 4 others be put back in.
Yeah, but that was what Lee said, was that this, even instead of the community boards, the recommendation to this council from staff would remain the same regardless of what the community board said. That information is put into there, and that's where you get those different coloured blocks on page 40 or whatever it is, where the community board's recommendation differs from the staff.
So that's right.
Whose recommendation? The staff recommendation going out for consultation or the board's recommendation going out for consultation?
Well, that's
That's
the
the conversation
decision.
we're having.
But our paper carried our recommendation, and this is your opportunity to tell us. And then going back to the point previously made, we've heard from the community boards, we haven't heard from the community. And so in the round, when it all does come back, we know what the community boards have stated, and we will then know what the community is telling us. and then you'll be able to make a decision.
And I think you've highlighted, Martin, is that some community groups will be interested in taking this on, and we don't necessarily know who all of those them are.
And again, we'll get to see this with the consultation document. I may be happy, but I don't want to see in that consultation document the views of the community boards being overruled by the staff.
So what,
Not being overruled by the council, it's our call. The
Yeah.
key thing here is if you don't propose something to change, you're going to get no feedback. So if you want to put out there with the rates rise that goes with leaving everything in, then fill your boots.
so the first thing that I said was, why can't this report go out as per what the community board said? So how come Cromwell Community Board said they want to keep terrace, so it's remained in. Minitoto has said they'd like to keep the Naseby store, the Naseby.
Because Cromwell's recommendation aligned with the staff recommendation. So the staff suggested keeping Terrace Hall and Cromwell Museum Building, and the community board agreed. The staff team have recommended, based on the numbers and nothing else, those three options in the Minitoto. The board have said they want to keep more, but as Peter has said, we want the community to tell us what they want to keep. The board is one voice of the community, albeit a representative one. But I don't disagree with Martin and Neil that there is an opportunity for the community to tell us. And as Neil said, if we go out with, we're going to rates rise, or we're here if we don't want a rates rise.
Yeah, and like tell us which bit to take out. He goes away of actually saying we're conscious of rates. The staff recommendation is this. We know what the board has said, and we can support that or not at this table today. And that's what the resolution is about. And if you do support the boards, then clearly that'll have an impact. Lee might know what the numbers mean for the long-term plan. Is it significant, insignificant?
Oh, we'll go with the left shoulder.
Yeah, I thought you
I
might.
think it should be just like
Well, let's just say we went with all if we went with all what the boards want, because that's what Lindley's heading down the path on. What does that mean in terms of the cost? What have we just put back into the annual plan? A long-term plan.
Well, if we put back in what the boards have recommended, then from a capex point of view, that's a significant increase. Because that's where the majority of the buildings that we're as staff with Janice and myself, that we have recommended that we have a conversation about the divestment of those buildings, principally because of the new capital expenditure.
Capital expenditure costs will be earthquake proofing, of which we don't have to do till 2025, depending on standard of some of them.
You mean next year?
But I would put you in 2050.
But
But I would also say in that earthquake proofing is not about ticking a box to say you've done it. It's about making a building safe for people to be in.
yeah, and
I don't think we want to be a council that just pushes that out to the very nth degree at every opportunity, because it's about squishing people in an earthquake that we know is coming.
yeah, but at the moment, the government has not come out with any firm levels until the middle of next year. We have a time period that we're lucky to have a run-in time to do some of them, and we're making the decision before we even know what the rules of the government are making.
exactly.
I think we've been running into this time period very obviously since Christchurch, that we know the impact on communities of being in an unsafe building. And I don't think that you can say we haven't seen this coming, because right from that day, it has been heavily indicated by every government since that public buildings should be at a standard where people can be safely inside.
Well, can we just deal with the ones that need earthquake strengthening then?
It's almost all of them.
It's just
Table page 40.
different percentages.
And just taking the point around CapEx costs are significant, but the OpEx cost is significant. So even if you choose not to fix the building up, the ongoing maintenance, insurance and all of that is the size of some of the money.
Because we talk about the impact on rates and the impact on debt, but the impact on people, I mean, it's a hall's not just a physical state, but also connections enriches communities, that's important.
And then we can pay, which is what this is going to be about, then they'll keep them.
Tracy.
So just listening to all of this around the table, clearly you can see that there's quite a lot of emotion. This is going to come at the next point when we go down that road. And we don't have to have a view right now, in my opinion. We don't have to have a view. We have to make a decision at that point. But for me, and I just wanted to say this, is that I feel really conscious about going to our communities and saying, we want to hear from you. and then making a contrary decision when we ask them to come to us. And that's something, and we may or we may not, but it's a really big thing. And I think it kind of ties in with what other people are saying. If we put it in, we are saying we want to hear from you because we're keeping our options open. And I hope, like with what's happened with the museums, in the previous long-term plan, that sector came to us. We don't know what's going to potentially come out of the, dare I say the woodwork, sorry. It's probably not the best thing.
You're not for
But
it.
yeah, it's not, wherever you sit, it's not easy.
These up till now, till digitalisation, have been funded by the board, correct?
By the ward.
By the board.
By the ward. Correct.
So for the last 120 years, the Community have been quite happy to fund all of those 11.
But I challenge that. Look at the state though.
Now there is one.
And the fact is, I don't think you have funded them as a level that people got. We've spread the assets across New Zealand.
Look at
And this is true.
Look at Miller's Flat Pool. They're fantastic.
I know, but then I can show you examples on that spreadsheet where they're not. They need a lot of them.
Well, and Bexhall, the school came to the VCB Linley and said they can't wait for a new hub to be built at Omakau so they can go there instead of the Bexhall. There are alternatives coming, but
I think there's some good discussion to be had around divesting some of them, and I think there's going to be some that some of our community feel really strongly about keeping. And I know in my district there's one that my community is really strong about, but I think there's also an opportunity for us to weed out some of the weeds because there are halls that we don't need. And we don't want to have significant rate rises. So I think giving our communities the chance to have their say is a good thing. And we don't necessarily have to divest every single one. No, we commend it.
And that's why the consultation document's going to have to be, that's the critical thing about. Here's what it's going to cost you if you want to keep it.
Yeah, that's what it will say.
And that's what it's going to say.
Yeah.
And if I may just to Councillor Duncan's comment there, I'm not entirely sure that we've had the conversation.
I don't think we have.
And what we're recommending is that, hey, given, the rules are shifted, we're in a different position. This is about having a conversation with your community to bring the information back to go, okay, now you need to make a hard decision. Your community will say this, your community has said this, here's all the facts and information. What do you want to do?
And going along with what Councillor Patterson has said is that our community is probably quite passionate about some of the ones that our community board wanted on there because the Lions Group, the Community Trust, the Funding Centennial Milk Bar, the railway station's on there, but Fenton Library is where the radio station, community money went into there. They're probably pretty passionate about either keeping them on or some of them they may be able to divest, but it's going to be quite a tricky conversation, and then they might come up in the house because we're actually the ones that are going to lose the most. And you'd argue that the distributisation has been, that cost has been happily been, well, as Peter's brought out, some of them may not have been maintained to the level, but the earthquaking rules have changed and they're still changing. But if we may then as a council decide to go exactly against the opposite of what those people have been happy to have.
Or not.
Or not.
On the basis that this will generate a huge amount of interest and passionate people from all areas of our council, I'm happy to move A, B, C and D and anticipate this being a, Nigel is happy to second that. This will be a big consultation document for our community. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you.
Got some meetings to have. Like,
Yeah, we'll work again. Yeah. Either.
Christmas.
Good run. But they are on board.
You are?
So they're going to win the job.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's move now to, item 24.14.10, which is fast track approval bill, 2024. A briefing from Anne Wright, which will probably include the update, the fact that it passed its third reading yesterday, I believe. And,
If I can, just before you kick into to the detail, just to frame this conversation out is, two community board meetings previously for CCB, there were a couple of speakers in public forum that raised concerns in relation to the conversation about Santana and Santana Mine and the fast track bill, and what is the opportunity for the community board for council? What is the time frame of what we have in relation to the touch points of you as council being consulted through the fast track process? And so Anne and I had a conversation after this, hence this report, to bring you up to speed with what those opportunities look like, or not, as the case may be, and what the timeframes look like in relation to that. And to that point, I'll hand over to Anne, who'll go through a bit more detail as to what that looks like for yourselves. Thanks, Anne.
Okay, thanks, Lee. Can everybody hear me? Sorry, I'm having a few technical issues here.
Yes.
Hopefully you can. Great. I'll take the report as read, but I'll just go through some highlight points in here. So the fast track approvals bill came in early 2022, 24, sorry, was introduced by government. It's very similar to the COVID fast track consenting process with a few sort of shifts in terms of the priorities. The first reading was in April, and they received approximately 27,000 submissions. So that was a significant number of submissions. The bill that we've got in front of us at the moment that's just gone through a third reading is substantially different from the original one, which is in terms of there has been some changes that have come out of that submission process. So I guess this briefing is just based on what we know so far. We don't have royal assent yet, but given that the third reading has just happened, and they had promised it prior to Christmas, so it may well come out today or tomorrow or even Friday. So one of the big things with the fast track approvals bill is that the purpose is to facilitate the delivery of infrastructure and development projects with significant regional or national benefits. It proposes a one-stop shop for consents and approvals required over a wide range of legislation to enable projects to proceed in a more efficient manner. That's the intention. All decisions are made by an independent panel. The panel convener under the umbrella of the EPA, who will provide secretariat support, is an Environment Court judge or a High Court judge appointed by the Minister, and that's the Minister of Infrastructure, not the Minister for the Environment. Panel's made up of 4 people, including 1 person nominated by local authorities. So there will be an opportunity for council to consider who they would like to hear any fast track consents that we have coming our way. So the panel members must collectively have a level of skill and expertise to be in there. It's not a political appointment as such. It's definitely one that they're looking for a specific skill set. In terms of the applications that are coming through on the schedule that's been released, we have 2 in our district. The second one took us by surprise, but the first one that everybody is aware of will be the Matakanui Gold Limited application at Bendigo. That's the first one, and the other one is Remarkable Ski Area, which is an upgrade into the Doolins for the expansion of the building there. So we don't have a lot of detail at the moment. We were supposed to get it by the end of November. I think it's been extended to the 20th of December. So by Friday, we should have a little bit more detail about what it looks like. At the moment, we've got a couple of lines on the schedule, and that's the extent of it. Our understanding is also that when it went for the third reading, that the ministers perhaps weren't, the election officials weren't even privy to the detail on these projects. So as soon as we know, we'll know what we're dealing with. In terms of opportunities to comment, so prior to the lodgement of the substantive applications to the EPA, they are required to consult with local authorities. So we will get an opportunity to have a comment prior to lodgement. We're not really clear about what that means, but we will to provide some input at that point. In terms of opportunity to comment on the application, once it's lodged, local authorities get 20 working days, no extensions are provided for, so we have to turn around quite fast in terms of any responses that we want to make or any recommendations we want to make on an application. And then the same kind of restrictions apply to the applicant, who will in turn have 5 working days to consider any responses received from the local authority and other parties who are invited. Further information, the panel may from time to time, prior to making the decision, at any time prior to making the decision, they can request further information from either relevant parties or for example, from the local authority. The last chance that we get to have a look is before granting the approval, we get to look at the draft conditions. So there'll be an opportunity for the local authority to speak then. In terms of the actual decision-making process, there's a hierarchy developed. So the purpose of the fast track applications approval, the fast track bill or legislation as it will be, is the priority. So that's the first priority. So that's what we talked about before about the regional and national benefits. So, and then the RMA, the purpose of the RMA, promoting sustainable natural physical, is number 2. The district plan provisions sit down at number 5. So they do sit pretty low. So we'll probably, so it'll be interesting to see where some of these land. So the district plan won't play a major part in decision making. The decision has to be made by the panel within 25 days, working days. There is no requirement to hold a hearing and no rights of appeal other than to the High Court and points of law. We are able to recover costs, the actual reasonable costs of responding or performing our duties and exercise under this bill, so we can recover some costs. We do have, as I said before, we've got limited information at the moment about these projects, but as soon as we do have a little bit more information, given the constraints that we will have in terms of being able to respond, we'll start looking at them as soon as we've got as much the more thorough explanations of the projects, not necessarily the applications themselves, but at least if we have a little bit more detail, we can start thinking about what we need to do and who we might need to get in. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Anne. So there's a reasonably succinct summary of what the fast track bill is going to go and do. Watch the space. Any questions? The recommendation is that we receive the report. Move by Ian. Sorry, Michael.
Does our district plan have any ability to ask for bonds to be posted?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that question.
Oh, sorry. Has our district plan got any provisions for the posting of bonds against the performance and compliance with the district plan?
That would be something that we can put into the conditions of consent if we think it's necessary, and it probably is something that would be necessary in terms of a mining project or something to that effect. Yeah, that's definitely something we're able to do under the provisions of the RNA, so we could reasonably ask for a bond.
Right. So they're just taking that one step forward. The panel would have to do that. The council.
The panel would do that. Yeah, we would
have to put that in place. They could choose not to.
They could choose not to, 100%. So I think that is definitely for a mining project. It is something that is a standard for us. So it is something that we would be feeding back through our opportunity to comment, as if it's not already there, and we'd certainly take that opportunity prior to lodgement for that to happen as well. So to indicate that we would be expecting some kind of performance bond.
You can see that being a reasonably significant feature of a submission.
And as Ed said, we have done it with other less other projects that are nowhere near that scale.
I mean, I think a recent example is the one down the Cromwell Wanaka site, that was set by the court at $250,000 bank guaranteed. So they're not insignificant, these bonds, and it's not unusual for the court to do that either.
You say 250 million.
Yeah,
So
that's just an example, and that's in the
Yeah.
public forum, so that's come through the environment court. Yeah.
Fair enough. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Very good. Now, Ian, in the process of moving it, someone like the second, to receive the report, please. Sally, all in favour?
Aye.
It's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Across to the annex. Driving next door to the external building. Saskia and Paul, and it's on page 44. The annex, late item store.
Good afternoon, councillors. Just before we begin, just a couple of clarifications for the recommendations in front of you. Just to ask about recommendation B. And I just want to clarify what I intended there was essentially the only item, or actually September, that council needs to consult on is the future delivery of and what I mean by what council has discretion as to whether you wish to fund or alter the level of service. Just to clarify, if you do alter the level of service or do wish to fund the stuff in this paper, it does trigger consultation. So just to clarify, confusion there. And unfortunately, I missed a word in recommendation day. It said the Vincent community. It didn't say the Vincent Community Board. So Wayne has picked that up. As of the time of writing, that the rates increase, average rates increase, was sitting at, as you see, 23.4. What we intend to do at the end, we'll go through systematically through each of these topics, is that Paul will send through to Wayne an updated spreadsheet of where the predicted rates increase is sitting for further direction from council, so that we can take that away and include that in our consultation document. So Madam Chair, I plan to work just systematically through each of these topics. So the first one, the Roxburgh Pool, we heard earlier in the meeting, and I took from that conversation that the council is keen to have a conversation with the community about taking over the operation of that pool. So we will go ahead and for the consultation document that you will see again 29th of January, we'll put a preferred option that council takes over the ownership and running costs of that one. Any further conversation needed?
You don't feel particularly strongly or have any questions about that being in?
Okay. So the next one was from the Maniatoto Community Board. Councillor Duncan can talk more to this if there's questions on the project. Essentially, the board has recommended up to council that $200,000 be included to support the development of the turf at the local school. There was a conversation previously with council around it being part district, part ward funded. In a workshop, we were given direction, given the district-wide funding decision, that essentially this should be fully district funded if it does go in, it does get support. So today we are seeking direction as to whether you wish to see that in the document coming back from the 29th. And given it's an operational grant, we see that Paul's helped me there with a wee bit of explanation as to why you don't tend to loan fund those, and why it's not the best idea. If it goes ahead, the third option is for that to be rate funded in the 25-26 financial year at current average cost of 13.6 per rate. Madam Chair, comment, questions?
I've got a comment before we even really get kicking off into this stuff. We've asked all the team, as councillors around this board, we've asked all the team to find cuts. And we've heard from different departments and council where they've cut money and done that. And now we're seeing a lot of stuff coming at us, which is putting money back on. And I feel that I can imagine if I was a staff member, a team member, we're being asked to do one, the staff are being asked to cut funds, and then we're finding money coming back on. And there's a bit of a conflict there for me personally. I find that's a little bit off. We either are asking to save money, which is what our community has told us to do. And we've already been around the halls debate quite a lot. But then on the other hand, we're coming here with additional funding. And don't get me wrong, I love all this stuff. Like, I think it's fantastic and I wish I had a wand, but I don't. And I just want everyone to think about that from how the message that we're sending out to our team to cut money, but then put money back in. So
This is the message coming from the minister as well.
yeah,
And
I don't know how to fix it, but maybe someone with got someone who's got a face on over there that might want to say something.
All right.
Yeah, I really wanted to respond to that because I'm struggling. So give us some guidance.
It's good to have it at the start, I think, a bit of a hash out of this before we start looking at individual projects. Because it'll give us a steer.
I think you're 100% correct, but we just go back to the conversation we just had about the whole situation and other assets we've got. Is that all I know is that every year we go out, people don't tell us what not to do, they tell us what we shouldn't do. What else to do, sorry, they rates too dear, but I want you to do this, so reduce the rates to do this. What's in this list here that I take is what the community's been telling us as staff and elected members over the last 12 months to say, we want to do this, we want to do that. And Manahira Care, community hubs and that teach you as well, same sort of thing. So that's but nothing else by taking this approach to it and consulting on all these things, which I think what we should, if we're going to go ahead, we have to consult on every one of them. People see what the cost is, and I like the way it's been put out. It says, in this case here, one for the turf in Manatoro, $13.60 per one-off payment, done, job done, apart from the O&M going forward and depreciation and those sort of things, that's an ongoing cost, but the capital cost is dealt to, and people know what they're getting. So what I think about this is that we can say, yes, we're going to include it, and people can come back and tell us whether they support or not, because then they're saying they need to pay the money as well, and the numbers are there. So I think that's the important part of it all. And ultimately, depending on what response you get through the submission process, you get to make a call, and you might turn around and say, actually, no, we're not going to do any of this stuff here, whatever. But the key thing is that this is the community have already given us this feedback. The boards have picked that up, taken it forward. The staff have already write the reports to get it here in the first place. In the background and knowing that we're actually trying to save money. So I've worked hard over there, and I guess they wouldn't be naive enough to expect the fact that there's going to be this happening anyway. So I think we're okay to consider it. I'm not saying we should say yes to everything, but I think we're okay to consider it, work it through, and then get the feedback, just like we talked about for the council and facilities that we're looking at keeping or not keeping. I'm happy to have the conversation, and then you see what the community say. You're right, there's adding to it, but at the end of the day, if you get the strong community support for it all, it's.
Yeah, but that's our job to consult, to do it and create an equitable community. This is just a part of it.
Yes.
I've got a view that's different from Neil's.
I knew that.
And that is, it's something like the halls that we've talked about. Something that's in place, and we're looking, circumstances have changed and the uses has changed, so we're looking at consulting with the community about whether we should divest. So it's not something new. Something like the complex at Overcow, that's a project that's well down the tracks, and you just wouldn't make sense to pull out now, so that should be considered. But when you get something like new turf for the school, it's a new project, it's not a necessity. It's a nice to have, and the minute you put it into the LTP, and it's all very well to say that it costs $13, people, ratepayers don't look at it. If you're living in Ranfield and you've got a kid at the school, you wouldn't even think twice. Yeah, it's only $13, but that $13 is part of a huge financial contribution. And so by saying it's $13 is really taking it out of context. And I think the case to be made when you get proposals that are completely fresh, got no baggage history, no, there's something new you want to initiate. If we're living in time when we're trying to tighten our belt, we're better to say yes or no right now. As soon as you say yes and put in the LTP, you're going to get all this, so that proposal saying, of course we want, and that really puts the acid on you. We need a policy with the greenfield proposals that are not necessities. We should be prepared to bite the bullet now and say we're living in really tough economic circumstances, and we should just not even put it out there. Put it on the back burner, come back next week.
And this is typically not a new sort of, this is a researching of the current.
No, they
On
won't take
top
it
of
all.
it, or are they going to take it all back down? Same place, that's not much now.
Yeah.
But I think there is another aspect of this where some of the projects that are coming to us are asking council for less than 25% of the total cost because the community has raised the rest.
Yeah. But that's not stated here.
Well, it does. Council consider partially funding 25% of the grant.
Just to clarify, that was the conversation in the workshop was originally going to be that the money of Toto Ward were going to fund 75% of the 250,000 and council 25%. And basically, council gave the direction that given the district-wide funding, that the whole 250 should be spread across the district.
Okay, so that's not just right.
Council did that workshop.
Yeah.
And it's 250, not 200, because it says 200.
Oh, sorry, 200,000, sorry.
Yeah, like our job is to do this on every issue that comes up. Now, whether it's upgrading or depreciation on water, upgrading roads, bridges, infrastructure, libraries. I mean, if we're going to take that approach, well, why are we doing anything?
No,
Do you want a 3% rate rise, or do you want the communities to have what they wish? And that's our job, to deliver the infrastructure they want at a fair and equitable market. Like everyone's running around the moment, we've got to cut costs, And at what point are we fulfilling our role of being here to actually do the things that are needed at a level? We can't do everything for nothing. You're not going to get credit. Do you want the facilities these people want to do? And look at Cromwell, there's 3 or 4 on there that Cromwell want. We don't take that approach and we can turn these pages off and just do what we've got. Then we're going to come up about depreciation, roads, bridges, buildings, water. It's not going to go down. What's our role? If the communities want it, to ask them, like I said before, ask them to consult. If they say they want it, then they're going to have to pay for it. And that's our role. That's our job, to deliver the rates to them, the cost of doing the business, if they want it.
So long as you're satisfied that this counts as business, because we're being told it's not.
Yeah. And I mean, the only other question I've got is with this one, is it's at it's at school, so can they fundraise the 200,000?
Large selling buildings, the houses that should really be used for school teachers, selling assets and school assets to fund the dirt. And it is tricky in the sense that it's actually an education system land. Like it's actually like a community now. You've got a brand new school, brand new sports club funding the gymnasium, and they're saying they want help on education land. So it is tricky on that part. But then they are like the Omacau community, raising all their funds from a small community and doing everything else in the community. And that is the only thing about it, is it's education board land, not a council land. Very similar to the monument.
Just as important to our community as the roading and infrastructure as the cultural, the health, the sport, the well-being, isn't it?
But it's a core business. That's the debate. It's a core business.
Let's start out. It's still important to the community.
They are.
I suppose you have it out of the way, but
Just keep saying 23% to yourself. And where you're going to cut them. I mean, it's not a necessity. It's not turning the tap on or flush the toilet. It's something that arguably is not even our core business.
is of relevance.
Yeah.
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 A lot of it is on about your business. And realistically, is it now that we have the courage to actually say, no, we can't afford this, or our ratepayers can't afford this. We had the pensioners that came to us basically pleading with us not to put up the rates like we did last time. And here we go again. At what stage are we going to say we can't afford it? We're just going to have to tighten the belt. The only thing we can do is either say no to some of these things. The other option is to stick them out there and let the people decide. But at the end of the day, someone's got to say, no, we can't afford it.
And this report's been written in such a way that you have that option now, because, you know, considers the recommendation, and then it says, if supportive. So if you're not supportive, then it's stopped there and then, you know, so it was really expressly to get councillors to have a firm view on whether to support it or not.
Sure, take your view one step further, actually show that you're courage and go to stuff that's already in place and cut that too. Go to stuff that's already in place and start looking at that with a fine approach as well. So I don't accept the fact that stuff we've been doing for a long time is not off the table either, using that logic. If we're going to go that way, then it's also incumbent on us to go actually look at what we're currently doing and say, well, actually, we're going to just stop doing that too. It's a significant change in level of service. Now's the time to do it. And if you do that, you're going to get a consultant on that stuff as well. You know, this way here is this a way here to engage with your community in one of the best ways possible, and they see the amounts to actually get what they really, really think. And then we're still faced with the decision to play out whether we still go ahead or not based on what we hear, because you can guarantee them people will say yes, and people will say no. So we've got the scope to do it without a doubt, but we get a true sense of what people actually want. And if people are of those same people that came to us last year and the rates increase is too great, are true to that cause, but not tell us in no uncertain terms. We make a final call. It's just an option. And you give the community, just like we did with other stuff, we give them the chance to tell us what they think, and we make a final call.
Okay, given that, would we listen though? Because we have in the past consulted and they have spoken, and then we've ignored what they said and we've gone against what they said. Well, I ignored it, but we certainly didn't follow their wishes of the majority. So I'm just saying, if we want them to respond to us, then we have to listen to them.
But you also got to interpret what a majority actually is. Too often the majority is a vocal one, and not a true majority. It's the majority of the minority.
And that's why, to Tracy's point, Peter, this has been written such a way is we make a decision now. If you go out to the community and consult, you're going to come back with all sorts of mixed signals, which you can interpret any way you like. And yes, we've done the consultation. We're still looking at 23%, and we're not prepared to do it. But you've done it one step further down the track, where you're going to see a lot of people off. So, but and to the point about my only point about the new centre that we voted 1.6 for is if you didn't continue with that project, it's going to cost you money. It's just the foolish. It's not the fact that it started, it's just that it would be a foolish financial decision not to continue and complete that project.
If we're going to be consistent, then we would have actually gone out and consulted on not doing the town centre upgrading Cromwell.
But that
I just don't get it. That's what you're saying.
I mean, the Cromwell Hall is history.
It's didn't consult, we better make a change for this community. We didn't even give them a chance to tell us.
I'm not arguing with you. I know.
And if you're going to take Cheryl's place, why don't we come and revisit the Cromwell Hall and say we want to take 20% out of the cost? Where's it come in?
Sign the contracts.
With the Alexandra Tube, it's been years in the making. It would be really unfair at this point in time to pull the rug out after that, and I'm sure it's the same with Manitoto one. You've got to start.
I'm not sure of that.
You've got to start from here and say going forward, then this will no longer happen, but you can't, I don't feel, pull the plug on something like the Alexandra Chief. I know how many years they've worked for that. So at least they have a chance to consult on.
They don't have to. This could be the end of it, yeah. Of that money, recognising that they are only asking again for a small percentage of, well, not a small percentage, about a third, 25% of what the total cost is, but Tracy, did you?
Yeah, just, Paul, can you tell me, when you say in there, the, at point, C, recommendation C, so that 1.5 million is all the things that we've got in those other, in the below recommendations, right?
So they are the operational grants, so that includes the TERFs,
All the stuff that you've listed.
Yes, the operational grant side. I have not included the hub in that because that would have a nil impact if that come out of the reserve. So that includes the major event, all those operational grants total to that.
Okay. Yeah, so basically, you're still talking just over 20%. Right, so it is, I guess, to Neil's point, it is minimal in comparison for your overall rates. I guess the big thing then is, and as we all know, sitting around this is the big component of that rates rise is water.
Millions of ways, and that's where we keep getting to, is that our community will face a massive rates rise, and the nice to haves equate to less than 3%.
A tiny portion of that. And we're debating the tiniest portion because we have no ability to debate the big portion.
In a roundabout way, you're hurting the soul of the community for the minimalistic rate increase.
Another good point.
Thank you, Lindley. And I guess I understand it. I mean, it's
I don't buy that. It's not the way you run your business or anyone runs a business. You save every dollar you can where you can.
And if I didn't give him a staff dog tugger, I wouldn't have a guy to get me sheep in.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not an argument. That's
What attracts it?
so you've got to do it.
So
You save money, you save, whether you're saving, it's the old, oh, it's only a cup of coffee, the cost of this, it's only $30 for that.
And
If you don't go with the attitude of mind, I'm going to say $50,000 there, I'm going to say $27,000 there, yeah, you'll never.
And I'll give you my counter argument to that now, is that I'm running my business for the next 50 years as we're managing the community for the next 50 years. And while these things will make a massive difference of where you can attract a teacher, a school teacher, a doctor, a nurse to our communities, because they've got the same facilities in Ranfurly and Omakata as they have in Takapuna or Glenmark or Glenfield or Burnside High in Christchurch. So I'm saying that a part of that minimalist, not a minimalist, it's a lot of money, is also a very big part of the fabric. And you talk about one of the professionals here, you've got to have daycares and all that. That is a part of our cost of our community. That is also is equally as important as depreciation at 50, 70 or 100% or not.
That's loading an awful lot of emotion onto some.
But it's what the community are asking.
In the interest of the fact that Christmas is coming.
We need to get this right.
On this computer, his spreadsheet, we could give an interim kind of yay or nay without saying yay or nay at the moment. Get through to the end of this, Paul can tell you what we're at, and then we can say, actually, we want to have another look at some of these things. So, Maniokoto turf.
Yeah.
Provisional, maybe yes. And for now, move on to the next thing. Right.
The next lot come from the Vincent Community Board. So the first one there is the legal service review for the Alexandra Outlet Pool. So this was part of the attempting to find some savings. So you see the proposal there is to literally close the pool, two options there, saving approximately 250,000 per annum. We will tighten up that number in the consultation document. Third option, if you want to go ahead with that, would be to close the outdoor pool. And up to debate.
Close it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Vincent Community Board.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks to you.
Thank you very much.
If you'd like to swim outside, Miller's Flat and Roxburgh, like fantastic pools that you can go to.
And there's a river.
Ideally not.
The next one from Vincent is the grant towards the turf that's been previously raised in the last conversation around the money total one. Slightly higher amount requested here, 300,000. If you were supportive, again, we recommended that would be a one-off hit of $20.40 per ratepayer. Open that up to debate.
Can I just clarify redevelopment of their turf? What have they got currently?
No, they've got concrete with a basketball court.
Redevelopment of their turf.
Yeah, it's not a redevelopment.
And it's going to be a multi.
There is no turf and it's a
It's not a turf.
and it's a full-size turf,
It will, yeah.
36 kilometres away from a full-size turf.
It's not a hockey specific, it's a multi-use.
That's not a hockey specific turf, that's a Central Otago Sports Turf Trust, but it's not hockey specific. It can be used for other things. It's a water-based turf,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It can.
Okay.
But would you get told off by the hockey people?
No. Because the hockey people don't control it, Central Otago Sports Turf Trust does.
We'll tell you what.
They might.
Okay, we'll get there with our scooters and see what happens.
So that's-
Right, okay, a provisional, yes,
No.
provisional no?
No.
Yes.
Vote on it.
So, another
Provisional
question,
yes.
could we use, board reserves for some of these hockey projects?
Yeah, we might look at that at the end, when we're crunching the numbers to see what they are.
Actually, can I suggest full thinking is that they're in the community space, the option of using reserve contributions that come from resource consent processes. Using the capital funding for that, and certainly something that Cromwell would have done a lot in the past. So
Can we do that
Yeah,
now if it's
yeah.
National Street Education?
well, that might make it challenging, but certainly on council ground, we've done it. We've done golf courses, we've done all things. And those reserves generally have not an unhealthy balance typically, and have no impact therefore on rates apart from depreciation.
Ian, I wondered if someone with 3 super sporty children, you wanted to make a comment on that at the start.
I would be in favour of a use for it.
As a side, the reason they're putting that to is that the Alex kids' home turf is at home. So Alex themselves travel to Cromwell or Ica, and there's capacity issues here, so they're
I'm
coming.
not sure I've got a conflict, but as Minnetonka, for our kids to go to any training, you've got to go to Cromwell.
Yeah.
I had to leave a whole lot earlier to come here today just for this meeting, then I would have to turn, and these parents are doing 2 or 3 trips to Cromwell a week, sorry, with their kids, and they representative sport, of which I would argue the Minnetonka performed as well in hockey as anything else. That actually for our Tibet and Minnetonka ratepayers, it's a whole lot different going to Alexandria and using facilities and business facilities, whether it be shopping, do all that, doctors and dentists for us. So it has a benefit greatly to Minnetonka.
Okay, the
That's all.
provisional yes for that one, Paul.
Is then we'll go away and look at the best funding option to the least impact on rates if that gets to
Yes, this is not final.
Yeah.
Cromwell Sports Club.
The hub. We discussed the hub, everybody's happy with the hub going in the zone and so that. Right, Cromwell Community Board had 2 for consideration. The first one is the Cromwell Sports Club, and that is a grant of 250,000. They've agreed to consult. Again, this makes sense for this to be a one-off grant for the 25-26 financial year at an average cost of $17 per ratepayer. Open it up to debate.
That's the one I think we've especially the board decision, as it would have been in the past, it would have been funded from the reserves contribution fund. It's going on to council reserve. So that's what the money is getting used for and can only be used for.
Yeah, that's the point, it can only be used for.
So it makes sense then to say this is development, something that's a community asset. And I think the thing here is to remember for Cromwell, that is to combine sports clubs, so that is done sporting ability with the exception of the Sports Turf Trust, who develop their facility and be sort of the regional hub for sports like hockey, to be honest. So that's the difference. So that's why I think there is a point of difference here, and if it can be funded from reserves contribution, then it seems to be the logical place to go for this. And the rationale was that we've done the golf course before, stuff like that, different things.
We don't have the building.
Doesn't matter. It's on our land. Well, we'd like to rescind some resolutions you made then. Just
Sorry, what was your point? What was your point?
The building is owned by somebody else.
And it also says in the lease for the ground lease, in the event that they give up, the building comes to us. So actually by default it's ours.
Well, by default, it's not ours, so we
Technically, it's not right, and so I'd be cautious about putting money into private facilities.
Yeah.
Council ratepayer funded money.
Yeah.
That's talking about the chain rooms.
Yeah.
Well, that's,
Sarah, can you-
that's akin to putting money into a hockey club on Ministry of Education landing, so, you know, be careful.
So the same thing, but that's quite right, and at the same time, we're doing a master plan for the Cromwell Race Course.
Yes.
Which will pick up a whole lot, so if there was a few on here that might not stack up, this is.
I absolutely agree with that. The whole sports spatial plan
Needs
to
to
be done
be
for Cromwell.
Yeah.
And to preempt it by spending money on upgrading that building just doesn't make sense.
So that's potentially cart before the horse, and that's out?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
There's a reason we're doing it, supporting.
But like,
Doesn't align,
for the other reason.
yeah, because we are doing a plan and that may or may not align with the plan for the whole area.
And we don't own the building.
And we don't own the building.
And we have, so the next one is the Cromwell Community Centre. Now, this was quite a late entry for the Cromwell Community Hall, so they were supported around the table, but they had requested further information. So then on the outcome of the conversation today, an additional meeting has been scheduled for the 14th of January of the Cromwell Community Board to consider this further, but just so it's not before council and was part of the process, they have got a resolution that you see in the paper. At this stage, we should start a grant of up to 500,000. They did acknowledge that for them they felt this was a particularly Cromwell issue, so they are requesting that that would be the Cromwell ratepayer district funding. And so if approved, and that number is obviously subject to change, 83.68 per Cromwell ratepayer for 25-26 financial year.
Trace.
Yeah, just a couple of questions around this one. First of all, statement. This is not unique to just Cromwell.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you now, and anyone else from the Vincent Community Board will be able to tell you that we are facing that in Omaka, and that's a tiny little town, and they want a facility there. So this will open up a massive influx of additional work for council, because it will come from every other little town around our district. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, with, God, what's the word again, Neil? Not districtisation. District-wide funding model. How does that work? Can someone just quickly tell me how that works with the ward rate? Is this still the same process through the long-term plan? It just comes as a ward, and the long-term plan, any submissions are solely from the Cromwell ward to
Grant.
Yeah, but a Cromwell, yeah.
Yeah, so if it's a grant, it comes from the ward.
Yes, so the grant comes from the Cromwell ward, but any other submissions are irrelevant?
No, council still needs to consider all these submissions, so we do need to clarify the process that we will go through. So a lot of these issues are being brought by the boards, and so Peter and I, Paul and Paula in the new year will just clarify what that hearing process will be. But council, you must consider the submissions as a whole when you finally go to deliberations and decision. You may, for various reasons, if it's going to be a targeted rate for one community, you might put more emphasis on the feedback from that particular community that's going to be hit the hardest, but you do need to consider all submissions.
Okay.
So you go back to the core business.
Well, I 100% sympathise with those people that cannot find childcare here, but it's not unique to Cromwell, and I don't think that this is a role for council.
So it's nonsense, excuse me, from the community board. I mean, it may be a non-for-profit, but childcare is a private business. You can see it in the Wormtree development. They've just opened one. So you're asking council to ratepayers fund to fund a business to compete against other businesses. I don't care if it's a non-for-profit or anything. And an environment just keeps saying 23.1%. That's how you could even contemplate putting on this, on that agenda is beyond me.
Not core business, but it tells you we've got a whole lot of growth and a whole lot of problems, and yet you're gonna be looking after kids. So district wide.
And there'll be a new subdivision and a new business will open up to cater for it.
Yeah, it's on the agenda because the Cromwell Community Board recommended it come to council for decision.
Yeah.
That's the only reason.
Okay, right. Just got my go at that one.
Well, also, what you don't know about is the history of the board's involvement in this facility in the first place. And but for the board, it wouldn't fucking be here.
Yeah, otherwise.
So it goes back quite a way. So there's some true history to this, and it's a not for profit for a start. And you're right, is that ultimately the private sector should take care of this, but generally it's too late, the horse is blod before it comes in because they can't make the money until the crying need. So, this is a one test.
Show me where problem growth is being inhibited. Instead of growing at 5%, it should be growing at 10%.
No, I think what I heard earlier today was how many people,
yeah, of course there is, but I mean, the problem's still growing like tumbleweed, isn't it?
Yeah.
So why are we worried about 20% growth?
I think asking all Cromwell ratepayers to pay $83 for 30 children to have a place to go to daycare is unfair, and
So
does anybody want?
I think part of the reason for coming to the community board is that it was it's a quick turnaround opportunity, and they are clutching at straws to find the money to not miss that opportunity. It's not a conversation around this isn't necessarily that this isn't the wrong direction. I don't know.
It's absolutely right that they should have come out. Yeah,
but they've asked, it's out there. Other funding may open up, it's not just about to support it, but it was the right thing to do to ask. It's not necessarily the right thing for us to do to pay it, but.
Well, it's 1% of rates.
And I'm not disagreeing, but I don't think it's daycare is obviously early learning centre.
Well, if you're under 2.
Yeah, you baby.
But that's a facility.
Is there a type connection? Thank you.
Okay, the next item, so these are the council items now. The first one is the future of water, and we just wanted to explain this one a wee bit further. So essentially for the councils that are doing an LTP at the moment, our timing is not our friend. So essentially we need to be building our budgets that will be audited in February before any decisions will be made around potentially a regional water entity. So we're on, Peter and I were on a Zoom this morning, and essentially 3 other councils are in the same position as us. Essentially, as part of the LTP document, going to basically say, is water going to remain in-house, status quo, or is it going to go to an independent entity? We'll give you further information on that as it firms up. So essentially, what we'll have for water is 2 separate consultations. It'll be the consultation, does it stay in-house or does it go to an independent entity? And to meet the requirements of the local water done well, is that especially if it is an agreement of a regional entity, that there'll be a separate consultation, sort of April, probably in April, so it will come quite on the back end of ours. But unfortunately, if we don't, the risk, council could make the decision not to include this item now. The challenge would be, for the purpose of that LTP, Paul's got to put the 10 years or 9 years of budgets in. So if we don't have a direction here, we could potentially be in a position where we have an amendment to the LTP. So getting direction, whether it's in or out, will actually save some costs and time down the track. So essentially what we're suggesting for this LTP is quite a simple consultation that will basically the model that stays in, impact on debt, and whether it's out, and basically what we are recommending at the moment, based on conversations on the table and the modelling, is that the water services entity are transferred into an independent entity. More detail. Debate.
Thanks. I think it's probably in, but does anybody feel differently?
Got no choice from it.
That's right. We were told the other day, if you keep it, the regulatory requirement and reporting will be intensive and intrusive.
And you were very specific about those 2 words.
Seems like a doctor's. Water services eventually is the right way to go. What that looks like will be what we'll consult with partners.
Thank you.
I think you can explain that. The next item up that there's been a couple of workshops on, volumetric water charges, so the changes, as councillors are aware from Julie's presentations, we haven't changed the amount in many years. So the proposal is to increase it, which will result in a corresponding decrease in the fixed charge. So at the moment, there's three options there to change it to 240, 180, or the state's cost 60 cents. And sorry, I forgot to put the third in the paper there. For starting conversation, 240 per cubic metre. Open that up to debate and question.
This is not operational. Well,
We have to consult if we want to change that.
We have to.
that's what.
It's a shame we have to agree, Nigel.
So I can be the broken record and say, I still haven't seen the data that shows why we're changing from the model that we originally adopted.
It's because you were.
You know, no, but I asked them today, I got the 2012 report. What I had found out is that we didn't do what we said we were going to do in terms of increasing the volumetric rate. But I don't think that if we kept the same logic that we used the water, the volumetric charging in, that would be a six-fold increase going this year. Would have got to that stage. So I'm still not convinced that we're not going to be in a situation where the price will drive the water usage down so much that you won't get enough revenue to fund the actual cost of running your scheme.
We have factored in a 30% reduction in volume, and that's not too dissimilar to what councils like Kapiti and that experience when they bought the volumetric charging.
We're not kidding. We're the driest place in the world. Well, sorry,
I know, but we do have a very high water consumption rate.
Yeah. I just think that it's six-fold, and I haven't seen the data to back it up. Now, I appreciate that I have been absent on some of the stuff because of all those other things, but I don't see that's enough support the number. And I think even with that 30% factor, I still would be concerned, just like we were in 2012, that we're not going to get enough revenue to fund it. Right? No, the basic cost, especially the way opposite is going.
Some challenges between who are our high users and who are not.
Yeah.
And for a majority, it appears, of people in our community, that will not have a significant impact on how much they pay for water, but for people who have a substantial garden or a heavy water users like council, that's going to have a big impact, and we maybe need to make some decisions around what is watered, where, and how.
Especially those people that actually can't change the size of their sections either.
You can subdivide.
No, you can't. Like, when you've got district plan rules that actually prevent it from happening.
You can go for capital with that. Try. Or there are options that do not involve you having nice patio.
Yeah, really helpful. Yeah.
240.
I'll take a 22%.
Anybody have any allergic reaction to that being in at 240 at this point?
Yep.
Neil? Does? Yep.
One of the difference.
We're still in the lower third of the spectrum.
60%.
We're very remiss in not reviewing more regularly. We're paying.
Worries me too much. So that is affirmative, so we will. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, and the consultation.
Yes.
Yeah.
The next item, we'll take the direction of the paper just before around the legal service facilities, and we'll later vote that resolution already passed. Now, the next one of the museums, we've put this in here, we just really want some clarification from council here. In the official minutes, it said it was noted that this funding was from part of the 25-34 long-term plan discussions. Within the resolution itself, no funding changes were suggested or made through the district-wide funding conversations that's already at the council level. So at this current point, it doesn't need to go in the consultation document, but really I think we just wanted to circle back, given the conversation a couple of months ago, to see if you did want a change in funding and whether you wanted this in the consultation document. But if nothing changes, this one is that's
My understanding was it was going in a status quo. Yeah. Anybody else think differently?
I think. So I didn't both follow the options or the rationale, but this council is dreaming if it thinks that having agreed to relocate the Cromwell Museum into the new Cromwell Hall Event Centre, that you're going to maintain the same level of operational funding.
We have thought that a new operating model funding has been built into the LTP to cater for museum.
I think.
So that's not income.
It's not,
That's not included in these numbers. In fact, we're probably talking about 2.6 million, 1.7 operating.
so does that mean
Is that part of the wider thing? Does that mean that recommendation is accurate?
But then currently,
Or do we need to say excluding Cromwell Museum because that's different? Dylan?
Just to clarify, the Cromwell grant is coming is for the maintenance.
Yeah.
That's not going to change in the short term. The operational part of the museum and the new hall, so the same is coming. So you can treat them separately for now until we get closer to.
So sorry, you, at the moment, the Cromwell Museum gets around 40,000.
46.
46, okay. So you're saying that remains as is, but there's a separate line of funding.
That will happen in the whole piece as well.
Thank you.
Happy that that's accurate?
And they have engaged, and I think it's easiest to keep it separate as being clear which start there. So.
I think we can tidy it up.
It's not just the operating, it's the outputting cost.
correct?
It's not trained as.
So I do think that as recommendations here would need to say excluding Cromwell Museum, other
Operating
I
costs.
think it costs because that's quite clear.
Yeah.
That's not included here.
Beyond a certain date.
Yeah.
So Wayne, given that resolution was in the previous meeting, how do we deal with that now? If they want to amend that resolution, is that by 75% agreement?
No, that's within the same thing.
Back to that one, but basically, what I've heard today is that museums doesn't need to feature in the LGP discourse for whatever reason you want to have it part of the commentary. Okay, the final one, thank you for bearing with me. We've got more details on this. We can actually tell you what it is and Dylan can help me out here. So the major sporting event is to potentially bring supercars to Highlands. They, in order to secure this event, they are needing sort of commitments of funding. Hence the request of $250,000. Anything there, Dylan?
Just to clarify, it's to 250, so it may not be 250, but it is up to.
Gosh, I love the optimism.
So there are conversations happening between ourselves, as you know, Highlands, and also about this, and of course, to chance with nailed down those commission terms might end up looking like.
Who would like to go first on it? No?
Yeah, put it in.
Oh, right.
Go on then.
Well, I mean, supercars is a business to make money, and Highlands is a business that makes money. If they want to get together and bring a supercar event down here, good luck to them. What on earth it's got to do with getting $250,000 out of the local authority is beyond me. And I mean, Dylan took us, Sarah and Cheryl and Neil and myself through Chaupo's experience and the economic multipliers and all the rest of it. But well, speaking personally, philosophically, I just don't see that we're in the business of giving money to a business. It's not as if you're providing facilities or providing a hall for use, like you're giving cold hard cash out of your back pocket to a business. It's going to make money anyway. And sure, there will be benefits to Cromwell, but those benefits will accrue irrespective of whether we throw money into the pot. So to me, it's not much different from marketing with the $500,000 buy bit of land for the child. It's not our business. It's the broken record, 23% rate increase. Why are we even contemplating?
Is there some clarity on whose pocket exactly that 200 up to 200 would be coming out of?
Yes, so we did conversation with Neil. Conversation this morning with Paul that if we were to be looking at a so it would be around the information which would have commercial businesses, any as would have residential and those that are in commercial sector anyway would be
Totally not Cromwell as well as, but it was just right.
That's next week.
How does that work for the business?
Something shop like $23.
It's a way we, these are different built to do that, right? So it's with that advice and you know, that's maybe it's questions already came down.
So commercial goes.
Having a funding policy that residential is 0.000116 and the commercial type it was 0.00006. It's like it's you did it in fractions of cents on the dollar, but it's a significant differential that puts the bigger cost onto the commercial sector. We had a presentation with the community last week. I went and did some work just to work it out. And it's a commercial value. Commercial people have got in the high valuations, so they're going to pay even more based on that compared to residential one as well. So there is a significant differential at play. Whether that makes it any more right or what, I don't know.
So that's determined by the valuation tags applied to the property. So a farmer's tagged as rural, highest and best use. A shopper's tagged commercial, factory's tagged commercial, that sort of system. So we would use that through QVs, groupings to target a differentiated rate. So we wouldn't, if it wasn't, we wouldn't be picking rural top. We can target it quite a target in a targeted way, but it can be done quite precisely.
Yeah, I think I can imagine from a commercial, I mean, and I'm not talking just about Cromwell, I think from a wider district perspective, it actually there will be flow-on effects both ways. You know, some people won't come too much further than here, but I think it is an opportunity. But
it's kind of like if someone had come to you now and said, would you like to have 4 beds in Wanaka in your area? I mean, it has the potential for growth. The Lower South Islanders are notoriously enthusiastic about cars, as we've just seen with our liquor ban. We only need to have you bring something back, Lee. Do you want to have it into recognising that this probably is not Council's core role, as Nigel says, but do we want to ask the community because this has substantial opportunity as well as acknowledging a cost?
I think from a bit more the other way, depending on where exactly it sits. And I agree with Nigel saying it's not actual role, but I just think you look at Sale GP done in Canterbury, ruined it. You look at America's Cup to Dorp, you've got Warbirds over Wanaka, you've got this. And I know when Warbirds Wanaka talk about rail trail, and every time we go to business meetings around, they talk about stopping more people, having more things for small businesses to have to be economic. They could be chasing a rate rise through the roof, but they're not getting the business. So to me, if we have, it wasn't that long ago, our former CEO decided we want to be involved in Crankworks because it was worldwide global attention.
I don't know, I have the same view of Crankworks.
Well, I did then too, to be fair. But for bang for buck, and I don't know whether we need to be the dollar value then, because it won't make any difference whether 200,000, 160, 50,000 or not. But if we've got a promotions grant, we're looking at that where we've got world-class Australian, New Zealand industry, for our and over TVs, Central Otago, it's a branding opportunity like never before.
If you bring that event to Cromwell, money will go to garages, service stations, will go to the restaurants, and will go to the motels and hotels in Wanaka and Queenstown.
But you can't underestimate how many people see the landscape on TV and think,
yeah, you can.
But how many people came because of The Hobbit? The film from 20 years ago.
They're still doing all of the rings.
In a way of these things, it's quite a good proposition, and it's the sweet spot for what Cromwell's known. It's the sweet spot with Highlands. But the way Dylan outlined it last night, if they would have come to the South Island, then they got Highlands or they got Christchurch, and Christchurch is no problem. So if they would have come to the South Island, let them come to the South Island. And if it was in another year when we're not looking at 23.1 rate increase, and we're not looking at a government that said stick to your core knitting, I might even weaken and sort of agree. But it's just weakening. It's just not our core business. And why would you? And if you were giving money in kind or leasing a hall out for nothing, That's one thing, but when you're giving cold hard cash, that's quite another, and I just can't see the justification for it in this year.
Well, and I think that we could potentially have been paying a lot of money to use Cromwell Memorial Hall for their prize giving after the event. But
Yes,
do you want to have a show of hands on whether you want this in or out? Because it seems like there's a bit of a split.
So have we got the ability to doctor up our promotion budget instead of a grant for this? Is it a grant? It is a grant.
Well, this,
I mean, I guess if you turn around and say, well, promotions, it's coming out of promotions grant budget. And we're not going to do cavalcade, we're not going to do this, 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 and this, we're not going to do crankworks, do this, anything else, we'll come up and race around Naseby, so we pick up $80,000 cost savings there. Because this actually is a seed funding grant. And arguably, if it happens again, because motorsport racing happens every year, like, does this give us 10 years being the game, or is it going to come back 10 next year, so another $200,000 or so and do it?
I'll say it's 10 years, but it's, if they change their mind, they'll change their mind.
just, we start straight into some territory that we haven't covered with organisers. There is a intent certainly with the seed fund to secure the event for return. But also reminding us we did speak in confidential, a little bit too close to. Your question is still around taking mission streams out of the years. The problem with that is those community grants.
And can I add to that, under the delegations just agreed today that you have delegated that.
We're not. Can I have a show of hands and whether you want to ask the community if they want to stump up to, and no more than, $250,000 to attract the Supercars event for 2026 to this area? If you're in favour, please put your hand up.
Money out there on the system, I think we should go across the board and even our lost patterns.
Okay, thank you.
So, Paul now seeing through the phone on the screen.
Yeah.
And to clarify, we, given that Cromwell Museum is a clarification on an earlier resolution, that can be amended today just by 75%. So we can do that.
One thing we haven't got in is the stuff that Lee talked about. And
Yeah.
sort of saying 2%. Yeah. So we can just adjust for that.
Oh, is that coming out or going in?
That's for the.
Paul's coming out.
Yeah.
That means.
Because we've said,
Yeah.
okay.
And it will include the previous discussion and appreciation.
No, that's, this part's the first part to see what the answer is. And then you have. Yeah, sorry, can I just clarify one thing? The council grants, there are no council grants.
No, it's an additional grant.
So it's going to require a new differential to do them because we haven't currently got one for council grants. We don't have council grants.
We do cover that.
Let's look at last year's rating policy. That was all. There's no under promotions, which I think where the grants come from. That's where the
Last year, which we didn't see the function, not going to use that. Yeah, that's still carried through. So it should still be structurally, it should still be.
Because I'm worried about is that my example of 0.0006 and 0.0001, that's for Cromwell, for instance, is different, TVS is different, and there's no council one, so.
It should be one of council invoice, we've just charged it this year, even though we said we wouldn't use it.
I've got the 24-25 rating policy and I don't see it, but I might be looking in the wrong place anyway. Yeah.
I imagine Susan didn't include that because the agreement by council was to not have that in this year, and it slipped into the budget, so that's I think why the rating policy wasn't adjusted, so absolutely right, we would need to make an adjustment.
But we have to make about 25, 26, if we go down this path,
Yeah.
we don't need a differential to do it. Yes, so we get to load it if we need to. Yeah, greenfields.
Yeah.
I hope to be a vineyard operator, it's pretty commercial.
It's all right, we can all go and have a swim in the mud with that.
Carl. Yeah. You'll get kids. I'm sure it's get out of here.
Hey, for $1, I'm bringing my kids. Can't take it back now. No back.
As long as there's a lifeguard.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, no lifeguard.
$4, it's great.
Every day of life now, we just do it.
We don't do that.
Only one door out here too.
Yeah.
Peter, how would you get off the military in this situation?
Oh, it's like being like this. Yeah.
Okay.
Not that anybody's going to be able to read it.
How would you get on the military?
Can I, do we need that, do you need that?
Well, that's just the changes. So it's 3 point.
We've got to get out of here. Show off.
Stand by, Julie, there might be finessing.
You can type it up.
Or there is that. Well, no, this bit here.
Yeah.
These are the changes that have been made. They started typing then decides to leave that.
Yeah.
So pulling out these, I've worked out the costs associated with the halls to give us 2. So that's, if you scroll down, there's 3.9 we've pulled out of the budget. So this is the important bit over this
3.9%.
percent,
So you're down to 20.
just under. So you're down here, 19.27. That's where you want to start looking. Pull out all your depreciation and water, you're down to 3.
Yeah.
11, if you go 50%, and then scroll up to some week had, you could range. I think it's about 14% if you go for 70% funded depreciation.
100%.
19.
100% is 19%, yeah, no change.
First year.
Year 1, yeah. Because all of these things that we've just adjusted for the first year, only 1 year, that's the exception of the hall works. I haven't had time to calculate that through, so you've knocked off another 2% in year 2 and year 3 for that.
Okay, so then if we went for a 50% order depreciation, would not necessarily go from 11 till 17.
No, we'll probably go from 11 to 13, 16, something like that. But that's a function of the costs that we've got loaded in for the Cromwell Community Hall as it starts to ramp up. There's a whole bunch of costs that now come in year 2.
Yeah.
And they're in there?
They're in year 2, 17.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in year 1, we've got the initial cost of hiring.
Just under 500.
Yeah, just under 500.
So 1%.
Yeah, and then year 2, we've got more of the operating costs, model costs coming through, so. Big jump in year 2.
So go back to Cromwell Hall.
Oh,
You've signed a contract for the Cromwell Hall. If it comes in outside the contract, we're exempt from any extra cost on that contract.
Well, that's something that we will have to negotiate with, at the moment, we're working incredibly closely on building it within budget and within timeline.
Yeah.
And at the moment, it's meeting that requirement.
So if it has a blowout of 1% or 3%.
No.
Won't approve.
Conversation I had with them on site yesterday, budget is the budget.
Good.
Well,
Thank you, Lee. It's the budget. It's the budget.
And that's what Gareth is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's what he told us.
Yeah.
When you pass the resolution.
Yeah.
Very firm on that.
Well, it's your crew lounge and on the people involved in the building.
Being open air.
It's not the carrying, it's the operational.
All right. Paul, do you want to talk us through what that less 50% through what depreciation looks like?
Okay.
Attractive.
I guess first up, the comment, it would be really helpful if we knew what increase would give council comfort, like would keep you awake at night as much as the higher one would be. So is that 10, is that 12, is that 1? I can do stuff, but I can't perform miracles.
Does this council feel like 11% at 50% through water depreciation, recognising Paul will talk through that? Could we live with that?
If I understood what 50% true water depreciation actually meant, I can think about it.
So, yeah, basically what we've currently got is for 3 waters, we fund $9.3 million in funded depreciation. That goes and pays for all of our equipment. All of our increased levels of service and our growth is paid for outside of that through debt and through DCs. What we're proposing here is that we still spend the same amount of money on renewals, but we reduce the amount of depreciation that we fund, which is a rate, the cost that is recovered through rates. And I gave a range of numbers. We don't fund anything. So that means that effectively we're going to replace all of our funded depreciation with debt. We fund 50% of that, and the other 50% is funded through debt. We or a range of in between 100 down to nothing. So that was what we were asked to do and come back with. So the numbers now look like, and I'm only showing you 3 years because we couldn't fit it on the screen if we did all of it. But so if you take the first scenario, which is to not fund any depreciation, but fully fund the renewals through debt and not fund any debt repayment, knowing that the assets and the debt is going to be transferred to the CCO, which you've kind of indicated today, you could get away with the 3% rate rise, basically. That's the top one. This next one down is, well, if we then said, let's fund 50% of the renewals through depreciation, and the balance is made up of funding it through debt. Again, we're not repaying any of the debt in the 2-year period because it's going to go away. What that does is it brings your rate rise down to 11.07 from 22. Because you've got to remember we're starting off at 22, you've made some changes at 3.9, comes down to 19, and then it would further come down to 11. If you then decided that you wanted to fund 70% of the depreciation and 30% was funded through debt, your rate rise would be 14.33. There is really nothing else that new that we aren't already committed to that you could change as have the same effect as doing what we're suggesting here. And I've said it in previous meetings, if you didn't want to do that, but still wanted a lower rate rise, you would have to look at whole activities as to whether the cost associated with whole activities was what you wanted to carry forward. And I don't, from what I gather, that's not something.
So what's a whole activity?
You might. Pause. Yeah, could be called, yeah, and I don't know. Could be tourism or something like that. It doesn't, any activity you need to look at in its entirety, because the numbers that we're talking about to get it down to 11% is $4.6 million in reduced costs. So that's what you would need to do to have that same impact as not funding depreciation.
So I guess recognising from the conversations that we've had with you in this room and out of that full, continuing to fund depreciation at 100% would be best practice.
Yes. Yeah.
However,
putting my CFO hat on.
Putting your CFO hat on, yeah, and momentarily if you take off your CFO hat, Ben puts on his CE hat.
Put a political hat on and say, you have to be able to go out to your ratepayers and say, we, hand on heart, can live with this, considering last time, I think you said 18 was an aberration and it wouldn't happen again. You've got to be able to pull the levers to deliver on.
Yeah, it wasn't a big ticket.
And I guess if we weren't getting rid of Three Waters, I think you'd agree, Peter, you wouldn't even contemplate this. This is a one-off opportunity that you have to relieve rates burden, knowing that
the major cause of that is being moved on to another entity. Now, you can argue, it's the same people going to be paying it. We thought, I'm a firm believer, and Julie confirmed it today again, that we drop the water charge as soon as the new entity gets it. They're going to put it back up again because they have to, because they've got to maintain a certain level of income to maintain their ability to borrow. So that's an issue that we've got to wrestle with in 2 years' time. As I say,
It's going to be chucked in 2 years' time anyway.
sorry.
That cost is going to be handed on for 2 years' time.
It will be.
And it'll be an increased cost in 2 years' time regardless. I feel like this room has a handle on the political aspect of what a rates increase means and what it means for our people who are paying. From a business point of view, Peter, what is the view on changing our depreciation?
Look, I am fully supportive of council exploring that and looking at like that 50%, because I know where I've come from in previous councils, this is exactly what they do. They fund renewals out of loan funding, not through debt funding depreciation. So this might be an anomaly for this council, but it's actually standard practice for many councils in New Zealand. We might be shy of the balanced budget benchmark, but again, if you cast your eye across a range of council LTPs, you'll see many councils in that balanced budget benchmark anyway. So, I think this is a lever. This is the last lever you have to pull that will make the significant difference.
We pull the lever, but the community's going to be told one way or the other. It's still going to come and get you.
Yeah.
Ultimately, where it ends up, you're going to get a big increase in this. We in the previous councils have made many a time trying to put off paying something coming.
That's right. But what I would,
you never ever catch up. So as long as the community is aware of what we've done to say short-term fix for the future, we can't be sure exactly what it's going to be, but we're pretty sure it's going to come and bite you, and that increase could be even worse and make us look like knights in shining armor.
this increase, though, this action you take today, well, if we do go down, there's a bit of process to follow to establish and confirm that water services entry or regional one is the way to go. Their increase that they are likely to have to do to match the expansion in the revenue, they can loan up to 500%. The significant jump that we'll see from them won't be as a result of this decision you make today. It will be a result of all the councils and the significant uplift. So the decision you make today won't flow. It will flow through, but it will be lost in ether when you consider the rest of the councils we're likely to join with.
Completely cynical. There'll be a CODC rates bill here, and there'll be a water entity rates bill, water bill there, and that regional entity bill will contain all the increase in funding water. So if you want to look at it in terms, not in terms of what's best for our ratepayer, but what is, we'll be out of that part of having to pay for what we're doing now. It'll be transferred to another account.
It's still going.
Many won't be.
Right, yeah.
No, that's just the fact of the matter. When you open up that envelope with the bill in it, it hasn't got CODC on it.
You'll have another letter yet, and it will be more. It will be more than you're paying now. And I think this lever that we can pull today recognises the fact that New Zealand is back in a recession again, and we might not be at this time next year. I'm hoping we're not. But the reality is, if you can't afford to live in your house and pay your rates now, you definitely won't be able to in 2 years' time. You've got to start making a plan.
And for a new crowd.
Utility for a temporary.
And we'll be using the water depreciation modelling to rip the services of the communities apart to come to a figure.
Whatever. Say this, that they can borrow up to 500%. If bearing in mind, you're not going to draw on all of that in one go, eh? And they would actually do this incrementally. Therefore,
the modelling that they've done so far shows that they don't. No entity will want to go to 500%, but there's a self-imposed limit, probably in the 450, 460. And the modelling, and you have that report from Morrison Lowe, what it shows is they don't hit that. They stay below that in terms of their debt levels and all that sort of stuff, so.
You wouldn't, it would take some time to actually get to that, to up to that level. So surely, you know, I mean, we're talking about there will be a significant increase to the average person in the community who pays the meter. But it'll keep on going up as they borrow more, won't it?
Potentially, the other thing you've got to think about in terms of their borrowing ability, well, not ability, what they actually borrow is based on what the works program is going to be, how available are contractors, because if suddenly a bunch of entities turn around and say, well, we've got this works program and we need you, X company, to come and do this for us, that may leave other entities short because they can't get the resources in to do the work. So that would have an impact on the borrowing limits as well. And you're not going to suddenly go out and spend, potentially, four entities, a full council, $100 million. You might program that so that the borrowing does flow differently. Absolutely, you're not going to lift your cap straight away.
Which works for the debt funding model, because if you take that approach, a major upgrade to the terrace water scheme could be 3 years down.
And I think that is a conversation for further down the track.
Yeah, but it makes a difference to their borrowing levels now because you're budgeting for that figure in your 10-year plan. So like it makes it very hard for us because you could have $60 million, $200 million spend in Cromwell, say, management. But the institution, the group with their contractors tied up in Christchurch or Dunedin can't get here for 18 months. We're putting that, we're front loading our debt on a 10-year plan, and we may not be doing the work for 22 months.
Yeah, I guess the answer that I put up, and it's a shame Julie's not here because Julie's really trimmed the capital spend down and pushed stuff back. So if we were doing it ourselves, I think that the capital spend we've got in here is a realistic delivery model. And I think that we haven't built our asset plan front loading it, knowing that we might be going to a CCO. We've been very realistic and we expect that when it goes into a CCO, that's the plan that they would take with them and deliver it.
If they can function.
If they can, but the other thing is, if we only need 4, what's the other 3? What does their spend look like? But that will then become the CCO's problem to sort out in terms of it.
But we're front loading that work program on a depreciation model now. The total dollar value. The total dollar value we're budgeting for that is what we're depreciating now, even if it doesn't go like so the entity may not do the work, but we're pushing it in their budgets now.
I guess though that is where your intergenerational concept comes in, that what you're actually doing is for depreciation is the use of an asset in any particular year, its reduction in its ability to do what it's doing. So a car, usually 5 years, by the time 5 years is up, you sell it because it's reached the end of its useful life. So if we were depreciating the car, you would be taking 20% per annum to put away for when you want to replace it in 5 years' time. That's what depreciation reflects to ratepayers of today, given the asset might not be replaced for 50 years. And that was the conversation I was having with David around the Cromwell Memorial Hall. You need to start depreciating it from day one, because in 50 years' time, you need to have accumulated enough money to replace it. Debt funding is, okay, if we're moving away from funded depreciation, we're relying on debt to do it. It's a similar process. The debt that you borrow is spread over the useful life of the asset.
And the problem with council traditionally in the time that I've been there, when they get in a tricky spot as we are right now, they pull back on depreciation and then it rolls into another generational issue where we've got it. The problem with water is you depreciate the asset, but we've got such fast growth that we've got to build growth into depreciating asset. So in a lot of ways, you're probably better off debt funding the growth and the developer, or the other thing, developer contributions of charity debt management.
Well, we do that. But what we actually do, once the asset, the growth asset has been built, it then goes into the assets, which then forms part of the depreciation. So effectively going forward, we do have a steeper, I would say, increase in depreciation because we are a high growth council compared to a low growth council where their assets are just chugging along as normal. We're adding to ours every year. So depreciation goes up.
Wayne, if you got, sorry.
Just got one question, in regard to what you're talking about with the two different scenarios of the 50% depreciation. And then you also gave us a scenario with not depreciating at all. So I just wondered what your thoughts are on, like, if we've got this 2-year gap, what's the difference of us putting 50% aside to actually putting something aside?
I think putting nothing aside, and I'm more happier for.
This is where I would say I'm right behind the CFO of this one.
So I just want to, just asking.
I think looking at the numbers, 2.99 for age, so that was how a lot of councils got in trouble in past years, and it's not a good idea to. I mean, that's why I said what I said at the beginning, that it's not a great decision from a CFO perspective to not fund depreciation. But I do understand that there is a political concern about that and that you've got to deal with it. But swinging back to 2.99 and not funding any depreciation puts us back to where we were probably a lot of councils 2, 3, 4 years, well, not even go 3, 4, 5 years ago, where rates rises had to be under CPI. I mean, you'll remember that there was councils were always driving to get under CPI, so they were having 1% rate rises and 2% rate rises. They were not giving themselves enough money to do what they need to do. We've also got to consider the entity that's going to take over, and I think 50% funded depreciation is a really good compromise for the entity to have some revenue at a certain level, so it doesn't have to immediately move from where we're not funding anything to a higher level. Because it will need to do that straight away. We're already there. We're not hamstringing it. So the increase that we might face will be from a higher base to something higher, not from a lower base to something more. So look, I think that I think if that's why I asked the question, what is council comfortable with? If you're comfortable with something around 11 or 12%, then I think 50% depreciation, funding 50% depreciation and 50% funded through debt achieves what you want to do, and it's the one that you've got. You're moving into a great new world with the CCO. I would not, as I said, I wouldn't recommend it if you were keeping it. But
to answer your question, what are we comfortable with? Given what it looks like we can get with a TUI or somewhere that's around 9 or 10, a lot better than 11, 12.
Recognising that that's with all the forms out.
Still got a bit.
Yeah, so and this will be coming out to our community to tell us, does this look okay to you? Do you want more? Do you want less?
And they're all going to be like Nigel and want to get it 1%.
No, you're going to present, do we want a turf here? Do we want this? And they'll say, oh, yes, that's good. What you really want to go over?
Wayne, do you want to bring up on the screen? Wayne's just bringing up our next one so we can have a look through and make a resolution.
There's one other thing that we haven't talked about, which I just was talking to Nathan yesterday. It's about $1.7 million in IT capital that is currently going to be rate funded because it's an overhead that gets distributed across the organisation. What we could do is pull that out and say, right, we're going to debt fund that. So there's 3%. Right. So if you go 3%, that gives you, and let's just, actually I can plug it in, but you're not going to be able to see it. Let's just.
That's the interest charge,
Yeah, but that's not much. I don't.
Still wriggle room within 1.7.
I guess what I'm saying is that if you did that, and let's say it's 3%, you could actually fund 70% of your depreciation, because that would get you down to from 14.33. You just go up, right? So see the next one there. That one, 14.33. If you're not getting 3% off that, you're getting back to 11. And then we can be looking at, if you want 10, then that could be you guys saying to the executive, go away and find me another 1%. And we come back with 10%.
Where does the IT money come home to roost though, if you debt fund it as opposed to rate fund it?
Well, there would be the repayments on that would be, because the IT is shorter.
So it's only over 3 or 5 years.
3 to 5, so you'd be looking at that. So year 2, you'd probably be picking, if it's 5 years, you'd be picking 300,000 coming into year 2. So that's about, that'll be less than 0.5% there.
Yeah.
But so instead of 16.93, it might be 17%.
Yep.
But you've got some decisions to make next year because you're bringing in a new community halls operating costs and all that sort of carry on. So we can work that out. Or if it was going to be such a major drama, we could, like we're proposing for the 3 waters, is delay the repayment on debt for a couple of years and just go interest only. And because I think actually year 3 for the council is kind of a watershed. Water's gone. You're now looking at everything else, which gives, and it's a new LTP, it gives you a good opportunity to start looking at the structure of rates and where your funding comes from and all that sort of stuff without water, the 3 waters kind of in the way.
What implications staff we have, because we should be getting rid of a third of our staff, correct?
If we lose the water, yeah, I mean, if we lose the water, then all those, the water team under the previous model, the existing model would start work, finish one day with us and start working in the water services entity.
But it won't even cost to us.
Well, it'll be a stranded overhead cost that we have to work over.
It's not going away, so they remain.
But surely if we're going to give it out, we don't want to be attached to it.
You can't give.
But all your overheads that you're now spreading over a base.
So it's not dollar for dollar.
The argument to that, of course, is our business is smaller.
And that'll be a big LTP because we'll be looking at a whole new world.
Instead of that, 1.7 spending on tech is still going to be spent when you're the same size you are now or 2/3 of the size. You're still going to be spending funding $1.7 million.
It's not a dollar for dollar reduction.
Sarah Star is starting to get a bit fluffy. Can you put up the resolution?
It's certainly the policy in this section makes more sense. The closer you get to that 10 11. It's sensible. You want to get that.
Look at the numbers, I've spread debt over 5 years. The 50% funded depreciation comes out at about 8.6. The 70% funded depreciation comes out at 11.92. And the other one, no, don't fund any depreciation, it's basically 0.61%, so 0. I don't think you want to.
It's not. So if we start modelling that out to come through on the consultation document, and we'll see that at the end of January and have a chance to. Yeah.
Both options.
So you're going to give us both options for the 50 and 70.
We'll go towards 50, I think, that's the general consensus.
Yeah, cool.
I'm not in that camp. That's what you need.
Happy to see 50 and then argue the case to go up to 70.
Yeah, and I think we can debt fund any of those other projects that are capital, it would make a difference to get to 70. And that's what we should be picking away at that, really, much as anything.
And they're 1 year single payment type. So the nature of them is really a grant and that's rate funded.
We did try that. I'm definitely not in the,
No.
not appreciating the 70%.
Right. Recommendations, do you want me to read them out, Wayne? Says okay. That's all right. Receives the report and accepts the level of significance. B, notes, do you want to go, we're just going to do the whole lot? We've had a chat through. Yeah, okay. Notes at the time of writing the report, the average rates increases at 23.4%. Notes that the current list of new operational grants to community or commercial groups totals 1.5 million, which equates to 2.86% rates increase.
I don't think the current list of new actually makes
No,
sense.
really.
It's not a current list, it's the list of new
Potential-
operational grants, not
Potential list.
the list. What is the list that's referring to? What list? Yeah. Yeah, the list of the report.
Notes that the list contained in the report of new operational grants to community or commercial groups totals 1.5 million, which equates to 2.86% rates increase. Notes that only one item in this paper is required to be consulted on, either as part of this long-term plan or separately, how water will be delivered in the future, water services delivery plan. All other items, council has discretion as to whether they wish to fund or alter the level of service. It does look like after. My eyes are getting old. Notes the budgets are still in draft and some numbers in the resolution below may be adjusted as the budgets are refined. Agrees with the recommendation that Teviot Valley Community Board, from the Teviot Valley Community Board, that the Ida McDonald Roxburgh Pool is vested in the Central Otago District Council as a consultation item in the 2025 to 34 draft long-term plan.
As long as you had the proper name of the pool.
We'll find it, yeah, whatever it is, tell me.
He's got
Kunawai, I think it is at the agrees that the preferred option to take over the ownership and running of the pool is a district-wide cost of agrees at a district-wide cost of 250,000 per annum. The running ownership.
Is that the right cost?
Okay, yeah, so $250,000 per annum. Agrees with the request from the Maniatoto Community Board to provide a $200,000 grant to the Maniatoto Area School towards the redevelopment of their turf. Does it go to the school? I thought there was a.
It's not.
Is it the school that advocated?
It's a school with some other people there, so it's not a direct trust that we're in TI.
Yeah.
That may not be drawn out, approved, that may not be drawn down until they get the rest of the funding for the turf.
That's, yes.
So it could be 2 or 3 years, a bit like,
To the full funding.
full funding available.
Okay, redevelopment there too. So
we're having
full funding.
Looking at grant on council land.
Because with that one, it said in year one. So if you're saying you're not going to draw down on it for a few years.
Well, they've got to raise, but obviously to Omacare, they've got to raise the rest of their funds and then they've got to get it across the line. So
we should put it in those books, but
They are working towards it as
So subject to the funds being raised. Balance the funds being raised.
subject to remainder of funds being raised.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the guidance is given us as between 26 years.
Yeah.
And is the school the recipient of the fund?
That's what we just, it's the school and others, but they don't have another.
So you can take the entity to say, agree with the Maniatoto Community Board to provide a $200,000 grant to use the redevelopment of the.
Perfect, thank you.
That turf.
would you want to be clear where the turf was, the turf location?
The two bond
Yeah.
Maniatoto areas.
Correct. Got that one?
So that just doesn't tie you into giving it to the school.
Of their turf on the Maniatoto area school grounds, subject to the remainder of funds being raised.
And just that instead of the, right?
Yeah.
Agrees that the third option is that the grant is rate funded in the 2025 to 26 financial year at an average one-off cost of $13.60 per rate payment. Agrees with the request from the Vincent Community Board to consult with the community on closing the Alexandra outdoor pool. Agrees that the preferred option is to close the pool at an annual saving of $250,000. Agrees with the request from the Vincent Community Board to provide a $300,000 grant to the Molyneux Turf Incorporated in conjunction with Dunstan High School towards the redevelopment of their turf. have to.
And funding, so we got the funding.
Yeah.
Should there be development rather than redevelopment?
There's kind of something there.
Construction.
Construction and services.
Yeah. Also develop construction of the two.
Yeah.
Development and construction.
Okay, construction, yeah. Yeah, but yeah.
Should be something.
You don't see it, mate. Or a Jesus class.
Oh, I recently, had my glasses destroyed by the dog, so I've got my scared.
Sorry. So in with the preferred option is that the grant is rate funded in the 2025 to 26 financial year at an average cost of $2.40 per rate payer.
$20.
Sorry, $20. The dog had my glasses. Agree with the recommendation from the Vincent Community Board to support additional council funding for the Manahira PFA's community hub to cover the shortfall of up to 1.6 million in order to complete the project. Agrees that the preferred option is to provide additional funding of up to 1.6 million from Vincent General Reserves. Declines, that colour is awful.
Oh, sorry.
Declines the recommendation from the Cromwell Community Board that district grant of $250,000 is included in the Cromwell Sports Club as part of the draft 2025 to 34 long-term plan.
No, you should be deleted.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That's now right. So just think about P, that we should, because we're actually declining recommendation, should we be saying why here?
Shall we put in there notes that
And noting that it's, there's a.
that there is currently
Sports plan being done.
what's the official title of the plan?
Race course recreation plan.
Just on it, this proposal is not in conflict with their plan.
Well, I don't think you can say because the plan's not been completed yet. The plan may say we want the entirety of Cromwell sports facilities to be based at the racecourse, in which case it potentially would be in conflict with the plan. I think the plan needs to come first.
Should that's our reason to do it, otherwise it's not.
There's no problem.
So what again? Sorry, what was it again? Sorry, Molly?
Yeah.
What's the title of the plan? Cromwell Racecourse Recreation.
I think you make it part of previous years of resolution.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
Right, you say they're included in the blah, 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 due to there being, a Cromwell Racecourse recreational planning and development. Does that make sense?
Just noting that. Yeah, noting that there is currently a Cromwell regional plan that may influence this, the development of the sports to club. Sports.
Plan underway. There's a Cromwell Racecourse recreation plan underway that makes it this project.
That's it.
That covers it just to make sure.
Thank you. There is the recommendation from the Cromwell Community Board that a potential award grant of up to $500,000 is included for the Cromwell Early Learning Centre. Subject, that's just what we've got, take that risk. That's not subject to anything, it's just declines.
But I do also want to give a note.
Do you want
That's
to
the-
do a recreation now?
You have to call it junior instead of bar.
As it is not considered council's board.
Yeah, I'm just making the words that probably, like, it's not, as it is not considered to be priority for council at this time.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah.
It's priority for council.
Or else we could find ourselves in a challenge from the other side of the
Well,
town.
it may be the years to come.
Yeah,
It don't say it's not our core business because
yeah, exactly, that's what I'm, yeah.
don't leave yourself open for concerns around that.
As it is not considered to be a priority at this time.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
By the council. Yeah, just because I'm a political view.
be a council priority.
Yeah.
Certainly a priority for people who are pregnant.
If one I do think we need to start using change, it's very the woods is looking plan, that we are consulting on, so that will come later as part of the secret consultation. I think we can just take out lots and brackets, and that will deal with that.
Agrees to consult on how water services will be delivered in the future. Agrees the preferred option is that water services are transferred into an independent entity, council controlled organisation. Do you want to put in there that?
Yeah, I just wondered, should we have a likely transition date as an indicative timeline?
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea, Peter. I think 1 July 2027.
That's the advice we received from DOA, that should be achievable,
So 2027.
2027.
which coincides with the start of the next Celtic Fleet. So
It's a,
yeah.
Agrees to consult on increasing the volumetric water rates charges. Agrees the preferred option is to increase the charge to $2.40 per cubic metre. Agrees to consult on the level of service review for community facilities as per the recommendation presented in a separate paper in this meeting. Agrees to consult on the level.
We need that. It's already been done.
Well, we need to say what we're going out with, don't we?
Final resolution ready. You need to put restate it here.
Then they would need to get the poll, because we had that in a separate paper. The poll and.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agrees to consult on the level of funding provided to support central targets. We put that out, yeah.
so it's all out.
Yeah.
That will carry on. Okay.
Agrees to consult on providing a grant of $250,000, up to $250,000
Exactly, named, yeah.
for the supercars event in 2026. Well, we put supercars event at Highlands because we're not supporting anybody else to it, so, yeah,
Supercars on word or two.
one, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Supercars event, you're gonna event at Highlands in 2026. It's really sad. It means it's wilting in there. Agrees the preferred option is that the grant is rate funded in the 2025-26 financial year. That's not going to be accurate, is it? Can we take that out?
I think it's still gonna, the average will maybe still be $17, just there'll be, the commercial will pay more, so what I think we need to do.
It's quite misleading though, if you say 17.
So we say it's grant funded, and then, grant funded in the 25-26 financial year, average one-off cost, with, being funded by the promotions and events. Right. Right, exactly.
And then you can go to your rates plan with your differential.
Yeah, it's fine. It's actually quite misleading. It's not on the post.
Nobody can post.
So,
Say that again.
Can you say that again?
It's not average $17 per person, but it's gonna fall much more on commercial, so we do the averages that.
Is that fair? People reading this consultation, I don't think that's fair to say to them that that's what they're going to pay if that's not even remotely accurate.
What we could do, Paul, is we could actually, when we go do the consultation document, we would actually have some, we could put some numbers, so we could just say, agrees with the third option, grant funded a financial year.
Via the
promotions
and events, targeted rate.
Targeted rate.
Because from the differentials, I can't tell you.
What I know right now.
They get affected based on what the total provided.
Now that, it was pointed out that it's not BB, it should be AA, comes up to AA.
All right, yeah. Now I've taken a few out and I'll get you. That's okay. I'll make sure that if it comes to AB, I'll make sure.
26. I am happy to move the recommendations. Somebody happy to second those.
If you did that, I've got a problem with some things I agree with and some things I
Yeah,
don't.
correct.
So it makes it awkward.
I thought we started with that at the beginning.
Well, I'm, how can I back it up? I don't agree.
Okay.
Don't want to say no to all of it.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Are we happy to? Okay, well, I guess I'll call for an all in favour, and if the motion is lost, then we'll have the opportunity to go through each one individually, or do we need to do that first?
Just tell me, but if the motion is lost, it's lost.
It's lost.
It won't be lost, that's the trouble. The ones I said no.
So do we do the minutes?
To the supercar. Don't agree with that. Well, if you wanted, there's one now.
Can you record the vote again?
Okay, start this way.
Ooh, roll over into January's meeting, there we go.
Okay, recommendation A, B, C, D, E. I'm happy to move. Is somebody happy to second those?
Oh,
Thank you, Neil. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
is this one?
Against? Carried. Recommendation F, Tibet Valley Community Board, and F and G, which relate to the Roxburgh polls. I'm happy to move those. Someone happy to second them? Thank you, Sarah. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Recommendation H and I, Money Toto Community Board, $200,000 towards a Money Toto Area School Grounds turf. Happy to move those. Someone happy to second? Thank you, Stu. All those in favour? Against?
Aye.
Aye.
Please.
Cool.
Sally, Nigel, and Cheryl. Right side of the room.
You're on my left. I think you'll be
Actually,
fine.
technically, it's the left side. I'm facing the other way.
Okay, that's not how you spell Cheryl.
No, that's not. That looks like central.
I'll get set.
All right. And brings it okay, so that's H and I.
Actually, not together.
Okay,
Yeah.
J and K. Oh, just move. J.
Sorry. That's it.
Okay, so this is closing the Alexandra outdoor pool consultation. Tracy and Stu will move and second that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Vincent Community Board, Molyneux Turf Ground, L and M. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Chair, Lindley and Stu. All those in favour? Aye. Against?
Against.
You want that recorded?
He's pretty good. I'm suspect. So I'm saying you get so you.
I'm abstaining.
Right.
The next one.
Okay.
I'm not in that.
Look at how we listen to
It's this one.
Okay, Vincent Community Board is, for the Manahia Care Valleys Community Hub up to 1.6. Hopefully they find it themselves. Tracy is abstaining. Lindley and Stu moving and seconding. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Right, declines. That the Cromwell Community Board grant for Cromwell Sports Club. Someone happy to move and second that? Thank you, Neil and Stu. All those in favour? Aye. Against?
Yes.
Nigel, do you want that recorded?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
declining.
We're declining that. We're
We
declining.
decline.
Oh, you.
I gotta say,
We're just coming out of the hot bath.
Yeah.
You're against being against it, aren't you?
Okay. Cromwell Community Board, grant to the Cromwell Early Learning Centre. Have a mover and seconder, please.
Yeah.
Stu and Sally, thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. agrees to consult on how water services and that the preferred option is moving to an independent entity, agrees to consult. Are you happy to be those things given, Neil, or is that just? Yeah, RST, okay, RST, I'm happy to move those. Someone happy to second that?
Yep, I can do that.
Neil, thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Agrees the preferred option is to increase the charge to $2.40 per cubic metre. I'm happy to move that. Someone happy to second that? Thank you, Tracy. All those in favour? Aye. Against?
Aye.
Carried. Did you want that recorded now? Okay, so just the $2.40.
Yeah, it's just for you. It's the.
Yeah, so just $2.40. It's myself and Tracy. Neil against. Right, agrees to consult on the level of service for community services facilities. Happy to move that. Someone happy to second it?
Yep.
Thank you, Neil. All those in favour? Aye. Against?
Aye.
Still against? Yeah. Right, and then we can probably go AA and WNX.
Yeah.
Agrees to consult on providing the grant of up to $250,000 for supercars and into Highlands in 2026. That this option is the grant is rate funded by the promotions and events targeted rate. I'm happy to move that. Someone happy to second it?
Yes.
Thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Against?
Yes.
Thank you, Nigel. Carried. Thank you very much. Steve. That's the list. Round table, and finding over the table. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Job well done. It's going to be an exciting document, Julie. You're. You need to get a better focus. All right. We did the community board in 6 minutes.
Yeah.
So this meeting is the 29th.
It is.
29th of January. All business on page 195. We head into Neil, agrees with those in favour, aye, against, carried, and we will take a 5-minute break to have your cup of tea, get some fresh air, go through, and then we'll back to 27.